All of humanity transmigrated into the stomachs of 100-ton crucian carps. Outside is a world with only oceans and no land. Every once in a while, the crucian carp will swallow seawater containing supply boxes. It flows into the carp's stomach. By opening them, people can obtain water, food, and tools or blueprints helpful for surviving in the stomach. The carp will also swallow dangerous marine creatures. Humans must constantly develop and grow stronger in order to successfully survive. The crucian carp feeds on algae. Every time it eats, a large amount of seawater flows into its stomach. After the seawater is drained, a massive amount of algae is left behind. At this time, the carp will stop swimming. To digest the algae particles in its stomach, the seaweed will move very slowly toward the digestion pool in the stomach. Because I obtained a golden finger that allows me to hear the crucian carp's inner voice, I learned that if I actively throw the seaweed into the digestion pool, it will speed up the carp's digestion. Then its steady swimming time will last longer. The supplies I get every day are much more compared to others. However, while moving seaweed this time, an accident happened. My arm was slashed by something unknown, leaving a long, deep cut. I hurriedly backed away. Then, the sound of a hard shell slapping against the fleshy stomach wall echoed out. Because my arm kept bleeding, I needed to find a way to bandage it as soon as possible. So, holding my breath, I slowly inched closer to the pile of seaweed. Finally, I saw the appearance of that unknown creature. It was an unusually large shrimp. It had a sharp spike on its head. My arm must have been slashed by that spike, but it didn't seem very aggressive. It could only keep thrashing and jumping in place. At this moment, my fear faded away, followed immediately by anger. Because I currently don't have any medical supplies, I could very well die from a wound infection. Furious, I kicked the giant shrimp far away so it wouldn't slash me with its spike again. Then, I tore a strip of cloth from my undershirt. After simply bandaging the wound to stop the bleeding, I continued moving the seaweed to the digestion pool. However, every time I reached out, I was very careful, just in case there was a second giant shrimp. When all the seaweed was moved, I started figuring out how to deal with this giant shrimp. Actually, I thought about just kicking it directly into the digestion pool, but I was a bit reluctant. The hard shell on its body, if I could peel it off intact, it could perfectly cover my forearm. If I encounter highly aggressive creatures in the future, it could serve as a decent defense. And the spike on the shrimp's head could also be used as a knife. Thinking of this, I decided to finish off the giant shrimp. I grabbed a piece of wood from the supply box and hurled it straight at the shrimp. Then, I mercilessly smashed its fragile head, pounding it for a full 10 minutes before finally beating it to death. Next, I stepped on the shrimp's body with one foot and stomped hard on its head with the other. I snapped the spike right off. After that, I took the spike and slowly peeled off the shrimp's shell piece by piece. Looking at the crystal clear shrimp meat, I gulped. I thought to myself, if only I had fire. The main thing is, I'm not used to eating raw meat, not to mention raw meat from this unknown world. I definitely wouldn't dare eat it raw. At this moment, the stomach space began to tremble slightly. I knew the crucian carp had started swimming again. After putting the shrimp meat into the supply box, I glanced at the simply bandaged wound on my arm. Blood was already seeping through. I knew such a basic treatment definitely wouldn't be enough. So, I opened the World Trade Channel on the system interface to see if I could trade for some medical supplies to stop the bleeding. But right now, most people were trying to trade for food, which made me really anxious. Fortunately, after searching relentlessly, I finally saw a message trading medical supplies. 1 medical hemostatic bandage in exchange for 3 loaves of bread. Medical supplies are life-saving treasures. First come, first served. I muttered to myself, 3 loaves of bread is a total ripoff. But my arm was already starting to bleed through the bandage. I couldn't delay any longer. But right now, I only have 2 loaves of bread. It's not enough for the trade. So, I clicked on the trader's profile picture and decided to bargain with him. Friend, 3 loaves of bread is too much. How about 1? The other party quickly replied, no way. This is life-saving stuff. Look at the trading channel. Is anyone else trading medical supplies? What's wrong, brother? Are you injured? I wasn't going to tell the truth, in case he jacked up the price. Not at all. I'm just a very cautious person, so I like to be prepared. You're right, brother. What you said makes a lot of sense. In that case, my medical hemostatic bandage is no longer for trade. I'll keep it for emergencies. Thanks for the reminder, brother. I panicked. Don't wait. Friend, how about 2 loaves of bread? Hey, brother, you're actually injured, aren't you? Damn. He figured it out. But thinking about it, it makes sense. It's only the second day in this world. When most people are trading for food, I'm the only one trying to trade for medical supplies. That alone says it all. 2 loaves of bread and a bottle of mineral water. This is all the food I have left. If you still won't trade, there's nothing I can do. I sent this message with an air of finality, and it was indeed all the food I had. If the trade went through, all I'd have left would be 2 bottles of mineral water. If today's 3 supply chests don't contain any food, then I'll have to survive on just water. Brother, don't think so poorly of people. I'm not going to exploit your situation. How about this? 1 loaf of bread and 1 bottle of mineral water. I'll trade with you for that. When I saw this message, my heart leaped with joy, but it felt a bit too good to be true. Could it be that I've run into a good person? Then, the trade offer he sent was indeed changed to 1 loaf of bread and 1 bottle of water. I clicked accept without hesitation. The bread and mineral water in my supply chest glowed blue, and then vanished in an instant. In their place was a medical hemostatic bandage. I immediately grabbed it and unwrapped the cloth strip from my wound. I used half a bottle of mineral water to grit my teeth and clean the wound. Only then did I wrap the bandage around it. The bleeding finally stopped. Just then, a private message popped up on the system interface. Brother, see? I didn't take advantage of your situation. Could you tell me how you got injured? I chuckled softly. This guy is smart. He clearly wanted to do me a favor and then find out the cause of my injury from me. After all, inside the crucian carp's stomach, the walls are all soft flesh. It's actually very difficult to get injured. Therefore, how I got injured is naturally an important piece of information, and I didn't hide it. I directly told him about the giant shrimp. Not long after our conversation ended, I heard the sound of seawater from the direction of the esophagus. I quickly moved the algae oxygenation tank to the side of the esophagus. The impact of the seawater is weakest here. Then I placed all the supply chests on top of the algae oxygenation tank. The water level was just low enough not to submerge them. This way, I won't have to pick up the supply chest every time from now on. After the seawater receded, a new supply chest appeared this time. Obtained stone X10, soil X10, licorice Xeche. Why is it all materials? I need food. I only have 1 loaf of bread left now. Sometime later, the carp swallowed the second supply chest. Obtained small planter box blueprint. Although it wasn't food, I was still pleasantly surprised. A planter box. From the name, you can tell it's for growing food. I'm still missing some materials right now, so I can't craft it yet. A few hours later, the last supply chest was washed in. Before opening it, I prayed, please, please, give me food. Obtained apple X1, banana X1. Alright, it is food. Although it's fruit and not as filling as bread, it's enough to keep me going until the day after tomorrow. At this moment, the crucian carp's voice echoed in my mind. Ah, I'm tired. Time to sleep. So, I also went to rest. When the crucian carp started moving again, I woke up with it. Now, all I have to do is wait for the carp to eat. I opened the world chat channel, ready to check on the situation of the other survivors. Experts, I'm out of food. All I have left is a watermelon seed. Can anyone help me out? I'll trade it for just 1 loaf of bread. What the hell is a watermelon seed good for? We don't even know how to plant things yet. And you want to trade it for a loaf of bread? Buddy, stop shouting. You've been shouting since yesterday. Right now, everyone gets only 1 supply chest per day. Whether you get food or not is purely up to luck. Most people are short on food. Who would trade with you for a useless watermelon seed? Seeing this message, I thought for a moment. A watermelon seed can definitely be planted in a planter box. So I clicked on that person's profile picture and sent a message. The other person replied quickly. Big brother, are you looking to trade for the watermelon seed? Yes, but I'm not trading with bread. I'm trading with raw shrimp meat. That's fine, as long as it's edible. But big brother, where did you get shrimp? The other person was clearly surprised. I briefly explained to him how I obtained the shrimp meat. I'm not used to eating raw meat. If I keep it for a few more days, it'll spoil. So I might as well trade it with you for the watermelon seed. Thank you so much, big brother. The next second, the watermelon seed was traded over. Whoa, this shrimp meat is huge. Big brother, my name is Ziku. If you need my help with anything in the future, I absolutely won't hesitate. No problem. It was nothing. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, I closed the system interface. Sometime later, the crucian carp began to eat. I also prepared to move the seaweed, because I was afraid of being attacked by the giant shrimp again. Today, I put on the shrimp shell I peeled off yesterday, as an arm guard, for protection. Then, before moving any seaweed, I would carefully poke around in it a few times. Sure enough, I encountered 3 giant shrimps, even more than yesterday. Because I had the sharp spike, dealing with them this time was very easy. Not long after, today's first supply chest washed into the stomach. Obtained canned yellow peaches. My heart filled with joy. This is great. It's high in sugar and can provide a lot of energy. While happily waiting for the second supply chest, Ziku sent me a message. Big brother, do you still have any of that spiked scale shrimp meat? I was slightly taken aback. How do you know the giant shrimp is called a spiked scale shrimp? It's in the encyclopedia. I found it by accident. I immediately opened the encyclopedia. Indeed, a new creature had been added. No wonder they're always hiding in the seaweed piles. It turns out their food is algae. But soon, a question appeared in my mind. Right. Then why haven't other people encountered the spiked scale shrimp? After some deep thought, I came up with a possibility. Could it be because I helped the crucian carp accelerate its digestion every time, so the time it's active each day far exceeds that of other crucian carps, and therefore, it has swum into the sea region where spiked scale shrimps exist? That must be it. It seems I'm already far ahead of others, but this news didn't make me happy. I was even a little worried. The farther the crucian carp gets from its birth waters, the more sea creatures it will encounter. What if, The giant fish swallows a sea creature that I can't currently handle. Then I'm afraid I'll be a goner. Big brother, this spiked scale shrimp meat is good stuff. After eating it, you can even gain a point of strength. So I want to use the blueprint I just got to trade with you for another spiked scale shrimp. Seeing this message, I was stunned. Spiked scale shrimp meat can actually add a stat point? What kind of blueprint did you get? An armor blueprint called the spiked helmet. It seems to be made from the shell of the spiked scale shrimp. My heart skipped a beat again. What a coincidence. It's a perfect match. An armor blueprint delivered right to my door. I chose to trade without a second thought. Then I immediately checked it out. Spiked helmet crafting requirements. Complete spiked scale shrimp shells, X3. Cloth pieces, X5. I have just enough shrimp shells, but I don't have the cloth pieces yet. So I decided to see what today's supply chest would bring first. If I don't get any cloth pieces, then I'll go to the trading channel and trade for 5. Then I took out a piece of spiked scale shrimp meat from the supply chest, intending to try it. Surprisingly, it tasted pretty good. Consumed spiked scale shrimp meat. Strength +1. After hearing the system prompt, I quickly opened my character status panel. My strength had really increased by 1 point, but I didn't feel any change in my body. It's probably because it was only 1 point, so it wasn't obvious. 2 or 3 hours later, today's second supply chest, washed into the stomach, obtained stone X10, wood X10, cloth pieces X10. My heart soared. The cloth pieces are here. Then I opened the spiked helmet blueprint. I clicked craft. 3 spiked scale shrimp shells and 5 cloth pieces turned into a blue light. Soon, a helmet with 3 spikes sticking out of the top appeared in my hands. I tried it on and found that the size was just right. Then I took it off again and carefully placed it in an empty supply chest, planning to wear it tomorrow when I move the seaweed. Just then, New Ziku sent a message. Big brother, I ate the spiked scale shrimp meat, but I didn't get a strength point this time. I nodded, not surprised. It seems you only get the strength attribute bonus the first time you eat spiked scale shrimp meat. Then New Ziku's message revealed an apologetic tone. Big brother, the blueprint I traded you just now is quite rare. Could you add 1 more spiked scale shrimp? I only had 2 to begin with. I traded 1 to you and ate the other one myself. Tomorrow, if I can get more, then I'll give you another one. I didn't fuss about it. After all, an armor blueprint is indeed more valuable than 1 spiked scale shrimp. However, I couldn't be sure if what New Ziku said was true. What if he ate a second spiked scale shrimp and still gained a strength point and was deliberately lying to me? It's not impossible. So, the remaining piece of spiked scale shrimp meat. I'll eat it tomorrow, and only after confirming that I can't continue to gain strength points will I trade it to New Ziku. Not long after, the sound of surging seawater came from the esophagus. Today's last supply chest has arrived. Obtained, Heat Pack 10-1. My heart filled with joy. Does this mean I can cook the spiked scale shrimp meat tomorrow and eat it? But I quickly dismissed the thought. No, this heat pack can only be used once. Using it to cook the only piece of shrimp meat would be too wasteful. When I woke up again, it was already my 4th day in this world. The first thing I did was eat the spiked scale shrimp meat for breakfast. Yu Ziku wasn't lying after all. It really didn't increase my strength again. This left me slightly disappointed. Some time later, the crucian carp began to eat. I put on the spiked helmet I made yesterday and waited to move the seaweed. But at this moment, I unexpectedly heard the giant fish's childish, whiny voice. So annoying. Why is it all these things? They keep stealing my food. Hearing the crucian carp's tone, it seemed very angry. It must be the spiked scale shrimps, which also eat algae, that are competing with it for food. It seems there will be many spiked scale shrimps in the seaweed today. I need to be careful when I move the seaweed later. And from the looks of it, the crucian carp has already swum into a sea region with a very large number of spiked scale shrimps. Suddenly, the entire stomach space began to shake violently. Then it started to tilt. Finally, it was almost vertical. Caught off guard, I slammed into the fleshy wall. Fortunately, the wall was soft. Other than being a little dizzy, I wasn't injured anywhere else. But the seawater and the algae oxygenation tank all spilled out. And the supply chests I've accumulated over the past few days were also scattered everywhere. I quickly hugged one of the supply chests tightly because it contained the canned yellow peaches and the heat pack, 2 precious items. Nothing could happen to them. At this moment, my mind was filled with questions and panic. What happened? Is the crucian carp being attacked by other creatures? Although the crucian carp is enormous, in this unknown world, there's no guarantee it won't encounter even larger creatures that might attack it. Suddenly, with a loud bang, a thunderous explosion penetrated the crucian carp's body and entered the stomach. The intense sound waves swept over my entire body. My head felt like it had been hit by a heavy blow, and it was splitting with pain. Stealing my food. I'll slap you all away with my tail. The sudden thought from the giant fish instantly let me know the reason for all the abnormalities. Good grief. So it was just swatting at shrimp. At this moment, the heavy feeling in my heart lifted. The stomach space had also returned to normal. After resting for a bit, I set the algae oxygenation tank upright. Although there was very little seawater left inside, fortunately, the crucian carp was about to eat. I could just refill it then. The scattered supply chests were also brought back by me one by one. Just then, the crucian carp began to eat. Seawater rushed in. I immediately opened the system interface, found the algae oxygenation tank, and clicked repair. Seawater automatically flowed into it. Then, I began today's work of moving the seaweed. At the same time, I was careful not to get stabbed by the spiked scale shrimps. But after moving everything, to my surprise and delight, there were a full 10 dead spiked scale shrimps in the algae. They were all killed by the crucian carp's tail slap. The sound of its tail swing just now almost deafened me. One can imagine its power. And this was only the first round of feeding for the carp today. I've already obtained 10. So, by the time it finishes eating today, will I have at least 50 or 60 in total? But I thought, if I just pile them up like this, the spiked scale shrimps will probably be washed away in the next round. So I came up with an idea. That is to make another algae oxygenation tank. Then, I'll place them against the stomach wall in a V shape. The triangular area in the middle will be used to store the spiked scale shrimps. Having an extra algae oxygenation tank is no harm. I have plenty of materials anyway. Soon, the second round of feeding began. I piled the spiked scale shrimps in the corner and used my body to block the impact of the seawater. Then I opened the algae oxygenation tank blueprint and successfully built a second one. Then, as planned, I arranged them in a V shape, perfectly enclosing the 10 spiked scale shrimps. And now, it's my fourth day in this world. While the carp was feeding, an unknown creature several meters long appeared in the seawater flowing into the stomach. To make matters worse, my flashlight's battery happened to run out at this moment. The stomach space, without any light, was plunged into complete darkness. The next moment, the unknown creature leaped out of the water and pounced on me. I couldn't help but widen my eyes, trying to see everything clearly, but it was futile. The fear of the unknown was infinitely magnified in the darkness. Suddenly, with a cautious sound, my head was struck with a powerful impact. I felt what seemed to be the claws of some creature gripping my spiked helmet tightly. It made a sound like sharp objects scraping against each other. The extreme fear made my whole body go numb. My left hand, holding the spike, couldn't stop trembling. I kept telling myself to calm down. Suddenly, I felt something else wrap around my neck. The sticky, slippery sensation made my scalp tingle instantly. In the pitch-black environment, I subconsciously thought it was the tentacle of a huge monster. Then, it began to tighten. I immediately found it hard to breathe. My face started to flush with blood. This near-death experience caused my adrenaline to surge instantly. The fear and numbness in my body dissipated by more than half, replaced by endless rage. With a squelching sound, I swung my left hand violently. The spike stabbed into that thing. I didn't even care if I might accidentally stab my own neck. The unknown monster immediately let out a sharp, hissing cry, and I realized the cry was coming from above my head. So I frantically swung the spike upwards with my right hand. Soon, I successfully severed the creature. The severed part thrashed wildly. A large amount of foul-smelling liquid was flung out, splashing all over my face. Then, the limb wrapped around my neck also fell off. After some time, the monster completely stopped moving, but the claws on my head were still firmly gripping my spiked helmet. At this moment, the effect of the adrenaline slowly wore off. The feeling of fear returned, making me afraid to make any rash moves for a while. I waited until all the seawater had receded. Then, I mustered up the courage to hand-crank my flashlight, to charge it. The moment the light shot out, I saw the severed body of a creature, draped over the algae oxygenation tank, dripping blood. Then I took off my helmet. I saw 4 sharp, bristle-like teeth, firmly embedded in the helmet. Seeing the creature's overall appearance, I broke out in a cold sweat. It was pure luck that it didn't bite through my skull, because the helmet couldn't have stopped this monster's sharp fangs at all. The reason I was okay was entirely because of the 3 spikes on top of the helmet, which created some distance between the monster's teeth and the main body of the helmet. That's why the helmet wasn't bitten through. At this moment, with lingering fear, I thought to myself, Muziku really saved my life. Then, I opened the creature encyclopedia section of the system interface. Sure enough, I found this monster. Bristlehead worm. Length, 2 to 3 meters. Food type, blood. Description: a parasite that lives inside giant organisms. Its sharp teeth can easily bite through an adult's head. Its teeth can be used to make tools. After reading the description, I felt even more terrified. Surviving this time was purely a matter of luck, having obtained and crafted the spiked helmet blueprint in advance. Suddenly, the sound of surging seawater came from the esophagus. Only then did I remember that the fish hadn't finished eating yet. So I quickly removed the bristlehead worm's head from the helmet and casually threw it aside. Then I put the helmet back on, and I didn't step out of the triangular space formed by the algae oxygenation tanks. Fortunately, until the crucian carp finished eating, I didn't encounter any other bristlehead worms. Only then did I come out and start moving the seaweed and the spiked scale shrimps. During this time, every so often, I would give the flashlight an extra charge to ensure it had enough power for any emergencies. The experience of encountering an unknown creature in the dark just now was something I really didn't want to go through again. Half an hour later, all the seaweed was moved into the digestive pool. I also threw the bristlehead worm's body in. After taking stock, I counted the spiked scale shrimps. Today, I obtained a total of 58. Among them, 8 were alive and well, untouched by the crucian carp's attack. Their spiked carapaces were completely intact and could be used to make spiked helmets. The shells of the remaining 50 were badly shattered, completely unusable. So, I decided to trade them on the trading channel later. Then, I opened the system interface and clicked on New Ziku's profile. I directly gifted him 3 spiked scale shrimps, plus a newly crafted spiked helmet. Sometime later, today's first supply chest arrived. Obtained iron ore X1, red ore X1, sand X10. I was a little surprised. I can even get metal ore. Next, I prepared to trade with the other survivors for the spiked scale shrimp meat. After a simple calculation, today is my 4th day in this world. Other survivors can only get 1 supply chest per day, including the one the system gave on the first day. They currently have a total of 5 supply chests, and with my accelerated digestion of the carp, the distance it swims each day is about 3 times that of other survivors' carps. I encountered the spiked scale shrimp on the 2nd day, so, after calculating, I guessed that someone should start encountering spiked scale shrimps today. Thinking of this, I immediately opened the world chat channel. Sure enough, I saw people discussing it. Whoa, have any of you encountered a shrimp that's several dozen centimeters long? But below, there were more people questioning him. Buddy, are you hallucinating from hunger? Obviously. It seems only a few people have encountered the spiked scale shrimp so far. A sense of urgency rose within me, because in a few more days, all the other survivors will have encountered them. By then, the value of the spiked scale shrimp will drop significantly. So, without much hesitation, I took the 50 spiked scale shrimps I had and divided them into 5 different trade offers, posting them on the trading channel. Each trade offer was for 10 shrimps. The first was 1 blueprint for 1 spiked scale shrimp. The second was for food. 1 can of food plus a loaf of bread and a bottle of water for 1 shrimp. The third was for medical supplies. 1 unit for 1 shrimp. The fourth was for metal ore. 10 units for 1 shrimp. The fifth was for basic materials. 50 units for 1 shrimp. Then, I made an announcement in the world chat channel, selling spiked scale shrimp meat. Details on the trading channel. Eating spiked scale shrimp meat increases strength by 1 point. Limited quantity, first come, first served. The moment the message was sent, the channel exploded. Some questioned me, while others discussed it. Have you been playing too many games? Increase strength points? Idiot. I don't know if he's an idiot, but you definitely are. There's a character status panel in this system interface. The whole point of this panel's existence is for adding points, isn't it? And so it began. Many people started considering whether to trade with me, or discussing which of my 5 trade offers was more worthwhile. Soon, other survivors began to trade with me, one after another. In a short while, I had already successfully traded 43 shrimps. The remaining 7 were for trading for blueprints. This clearly showed that blueprints were very rare, and most people who got blueprints would definitely consider keeping them for themselves first. 3 hours later, the carp had already swallowed the 2nd supply chest, but still, no one had traded a blueprint. So I thought with a sigh of resignation, I'll just trade these 7 for basic materials then. Then I casually opened the 2nd supply chest. Obtained mineral water X3. Looking at the large amount of supplies I had traded for, I smiled and muttered, not bad, although I'm not short on water now. Next, I checked the 3 blueprints I had traded for. Wooden Foundation Blueprint, Iron Dagger Blueprint, Spiked Greaves Blueprint. My attention was immediately drawn to the Spiked Greaves Blueprint. It seems it's part of the same set as the Spiked Helmet. I just wonder if I can collect the whole set. Then, I used all 3 blueprints directly. Wooden Foundation Blueprint requires Wood X20. Iron Dagger Blueprint requires Iron Nail X1, Wood X1. Where do I find an iron nail? It looks like I won't be able to make this dagger anytime soon. The Spiked Greaves Blueprint requires Spiked Scale, Shrimp Shells, X8, and Cloth Pieces X10. Although I only have 5 shrimp shells right now, I should be able to make it tomorrow. After looking at the blueprints, the next step was to check the food I traded for. 10 cans of food, 10 loaves of bread, and 10 bottles of mineral water. I won't have to worry about food for a while. 9 units of medical supplies, all of them medical hemostatic bandages. The rest is a box of anti-inflammatory drugs. The metal ore I traded for totals 100 units. 50 units of iron ore, 50 units of copper ore. Finally, the basic materials total 500 units. Then, I prepared to build a wooden foundation to see what it looked like. I opened the blueprint and clicked build. Immediately, a flat surface supported by 4 wooden stakes appeared before my eyes. I instantly shouted with joy. This height is just right to avoid being submerged by seawater. I no longer have to be soaked in seawater every day, several times a day. For the past few days, I've been constantly damp and sticky. The feeling is truly indescribable. Amidst my happiness, I was also a little worried. Is the wooden foundation strong enough? Will it be washed away by the seawater? So I pushed it forcefully. I found that the 4 wooden stakes of the foundation seemed to have grown into the stomach wall. I couldn't move it at all. After that, I built 6 wooden foundations in a row, forming a 2x3 platform. Then I moved all the supply chests onto the platform. I no longer have to worry about the supply chests being washed away by the water. Then I remembered the small planter box blueprint. I couldn't build it before. Could it be because I didn't have a foundation? Thinking of this, my eyes lit up. I immediately clicked to build the small planter box. Sure enough, it worked. Then, I planted the watermelon seed in the small planter box. It's just that there's no sunlight here. I don't know how long it will take for the watermelon to ripen. After that, I had nothing else to do, so I lay down on the dry wooden platform to rest. 3 hours later, the third supply chest arrived. After waiting for the seawater to recede, I jumped down to open the supply chest. Obtained. Titan Giant Cunfish Accelerated Growth Food Encyclopedia Fragment. I roughly guessed the function of this encyclopedia. It records the types of food that can make the crucian carp grow faster. But right now, I only have one fragment, so it's useless for now. The next day, when the crucian carp started eating, I also woke up on the foundation. Remembering the scene of being attacked by the bristlehead worm yesterday, I immediately moved to the innermost side of the foundation to avoid being dragged into the water. After carefully scanning back and forth, I found no trace of any bristlehead worms swimming in the water. I immediately breathed a sigh of relief, but soon, something unexpected happened again. 2 points of light slowly lit up in the water, like 2 eyes, staring at me from within the water. After the seawater receded, the light source emerged from the water. What appeared were 2 glowing spherical creatures. I cautiously approached, then drew the spike from my waist and poked one. The light gradually dimmed. I subconsciously took a few steps back, in case this was some kind of attack from the creature, but it didn't seem to have any interest in me. It just moved its 4 tentacles below, righting itself. Then, its dimmed body began to glow again. I couldn't help but wonder what this creature was. I immediately opened the creature encyclopedia. Sunball worm, length 10 centimeters, food type blood, a type of glowing parasite. It has no offensive capabilities. Perhaps it can be used for lighting. I was a bit speechless. Another parasite, but it's much cuter than the bristlehead worm. Then, something suddenly occurred to me. Its name is Sunball worm. Does that mean it can provide sunlight for the watermelon seed? At this thought, I couldn't help but get excited. Then I carefully picked it up from the ground. I saw it 4 tentacle, unable to suck blood, begin to wave around continuously. The light on its body also quickly dimmed. Then I went to where the small planter box was placed and brought the sunball worm close to the nearby stomach wall. Its 4 tentacles immediately attached themselves to it, and as it sucked blood, it began to glow brightly again. I prayed silently in my heart, I hope this works. I hope it can make the watermelon seed sprout. I also grabbed the other sunball worm and placed it there. Not long after, the crucian carp's first feeding ended. This time, I didn't encounter any aggressive creatures. Like the bristlehead worm, only 5 spike scale shrimps. After decisively dealing with them and moving the algae, I opened the world chat channel, wanting to understand the current situation of the other survivors. Sure enough, the vast majority of people had encountered the spike scale shrimp, and there was also some extremely bad news. Someone had realized and proposed a theory. Does moving the algae into the digestive pool increase the crucian carp's swimming distance? The moment this was said, the world chat channel quickly erupted into a frantic discussion. This instantly filled my heart with a strong sense of crisis. If everyone else discovers this method, my lead will be completely gone. Just then, today's first supply chest was brought in by the seawater. Obtained Titan Giant Kun Fish Raid Coupon X1. I was stunned. What's this? The thing was the size of a banknote and entirely golden. Then, a system prompt sounded in my mind. Steel Armored Leviathan Raid Coupon. After use, you can enter the body of an adult Steel Armored Leviathan to eliminate all the parasites in its stomach. You can return after completing the mission. In the Steel Armored Leviathan's stomach, all items obtained can be brought back. After the system prompt ended, I muttered, looks like this is a ticket to a game-like dungeon. But I didn't rush to use it, because with my current strength and equipment, even dealing with one bristlehead worm is a struggle. Then, I continued to observe the other survivors' discussions. They had now confirmed the theory that actively moving the seaweed could speed up the crucian carp's digestion, but the low oxygen content in the stomach was still a problem for them. If you don't have an algae oxygenation tank like I do, then expending stamina to move the algae will lead to death by suffocation. At this point, someone suggested there should be a solution to the oxygen problem. As long as we can get a blueprint for an item that produces oxygen, then this method of moving seaweed can be implemented. Seeing this person's comment, my gaze drifted to the corner behind me, to the algae oxygenation tank. After some consideration, I decided to mass produce them and sell them at a high price. And the items for exchange must be blueprints. Before others get the blueprint for the algae oxygenation tank, I must maximize its value. So I sent a message in the world chat channel. Looks like my luck is pretty good. I just happened to get a blueprint for an algae oxygenation tank. What? For real? Your luck is insane. Brother, are you selling the blueprint? Name your price. Only a fool would sell it to you. Brother, craft one and sell it to me. The price is negotiable. And just like that, everyone started contacting me, asking about the price of the oxygenation tank. I didn't sell them immediately. Instead, I decided to engage in a bit of hunger marketing first. Everyone, don't be hasty. I don't plan on selling today. After all, I'm still not sure about this oxygenation tank's oxygen output, so I need to test its effectiveness for the next 2 days. I'll sell them the day after tomorrow. Although I said that, in my private messages, there were still a few people who wanted to buy from me in advance. A few hours later, the number of private messages reached over 10,000. I directly proposed to them the condition of trading for blueprints. This quickly deterred the vast majority of people. In the end, only 8 people were willing, but I was still very happy. Then, when the carp's next feeding ended, I used the algae left in its stomach to make 8 oxygenation tanks. I successfully traded them for 8 blueprints. Not long after, the second supply chest was sent in. Obtained sweet potato seed X1. At this moment, I was in an even better mood, because seeds are what can stably guarantee a food source. So I built another small planter box, watered it with half a bottle of water, and then I started to eat and drink heartily. Now that I have plenty of food, there's naturally no need to go hungry. A private message was sent over. Hello, my name is Tichu Chusu. I'm the one who proposed the theory about moving seaweed in the World Chat channel. I'd like to trade for an oxygenation tank with you. Is that possible? After reading this message, I couldn't help but laugh. So he's the one, the brave soul who might end my lead. And he still has the nerve to come trade with me? Sorry, not interested. Sishu Chuksue didn't give up and replied, I'll trade you a blueprint for it. I can even provide whatever materials you need. I still refused. No trade. But he still didn't give up. I know. You want to use this opportunity to get ahead of others. But in this unknown world, being ahead all by yourself isn't necessarily a good thing. The farther you go, the closer danger gets to you. Although I can't directly help you, by myself, we can still remind each other and prepare in advance. Looking at his message, I began to ponder. Indeed, when I encountered the bristlehead worm before, I almost died. If someone had warned me in advance, I could have prepared. That feeling of being on the verge of death, I really don't want to experience it again. And just like that, I was persuaded by him. All right, what you said makes a lot of sense. I'll trade you one. A pleasure working with you, Mr. Bai. After the blueprint was traded over, I opened it to take a look. It was a weapon of pretty good value. The crucian carbs feeding for today has ended. I plan to rest as well. Before sleeping, I glanced at the small planter box I was so concerned about. It had already sprouted. A look of surprise instantly appeared on my face. The sunball worms really can replace sunlight. But then, another problem appeared in my mind. These things are, after all, parasites that feed on the crucian carp's blood. If I collect too many, it will definitely harm the carp. So I decided to only keep 10 from now on. Any extras will be killed. The next day, when I woke up, I saw that the sprouted watermelon seedling had already grown to over 10 centimeters. The sweet potato had also grown 5 or 6 centimeters. I was immediately overjoyed. I'll soon be self-sufficient in food. Next, I put on the spiked helmet. Then, using 8 spiked scale, shrimp shells, and 10 cloth pieces, I crafted a piece of spiked armor. Then I opened the 8 blueprints I traded for yesterday. Among them were actually 4 pieces of the spiked scale shrimp set. Spiked belt, spiked boots, spiked bracers, spiked groin guard. At this moment, a smile appeared on my face again. Then I checked the materials required to craft these blueprints. The spiked set was no problem. I should be able to craft all of it soon. I currently have 10 shrimp shells left. So, I decisively crafted the spiked groin guard and spiked boots. Crafted them. At this moment, wearing 4 pieces of equipment, I clearly felt that my body was a bit heavy. This made me realize a problem. If I add the other 2 pieces that I haven't crafted yet, I estimate my body won't be able to handle it. Then I opened the character status panel. It showed that the normal value for all attributes for everyone is 10, and my strength is clearly on the weaker side. This means that to smoothly wear a full set of armor, I need to find a way to increase my strength attribute. After a rough calculation, I need to raise my strength attribute to at least 15 points. Not long after, seawater rushed in. Today's first supply chest is coming. Suddenly, I don't know what it was, but something shot through the water, kicking up a trail of splashes on the surface. I retreated reflexively towards the interior of the wooden platform, then looked for the creature's shadow. At this moment, my expression was extremely grave. I had thought that creatures would only be brought in with the seaweed during the carp's feeding stage. Now it seems that when the carp swallows a supply chest, creatures can also enter. But fortunately, that thing didn't seem to have any intention of attacking me. Instead, it was anxiously trying to leave this narrow space. After some time, all the seawater receded. I saw a meter-long, glowing strip continuously jumping on the ground. After a while, it seemed to have run out of energy, and its light gradually dimmed, so I cautiously walked over and picked it up. It wasn't very heavy, about 20 to 30 jin. Then I opened the creature encyclopedia. Clean, skinned barracuda. Length, 1 meter. Description: smooth skin, extremely fast in the water. If hit, at best, you'll injure your muscles and bones. At worst, you'll damage your internal organs. The meat is firm and delicious. The fish skin can be used to make a diving suit. After reading the description, I felt fortunate. I'd already built the foundation. If I had been hit by it in the water, the consequences would have been unimaginable. I also learned that this fish is edible. I wonder if it can increase my attribute points, like the spiked shrimp. This made me feel a little anxious. What I need most right now is to increase my strength. Then, I used the spiked dagger to make it into sashimi. After eating a third of it, the system's voice sounded. Consumed, clean skin barracuda. Constitution +1. Speed +1. My face lit up with joy. It actually added 2 attributes. Although it wasn't the strength points I was hoping for, being able to add 2 attributes at once still made me very happy. Just then, New Ziku sent me a message. Big brother, thank you for the spiked scale shrimp and helmet you gave me the other day. I just got a recipe, and I'm sending it to you now, big brother. My eyes instantly lit up, because it was a recipe for making fertilizer. What perfect timing. With fertilizer, I can accelerate the growth of the food in the planter and achieve food self-sufficiency sooner. Low-grade fertilizer crafting recipe. Requires crafting in a compost bin. Plus licorice x5. Crucian carp feces x5. I was stunned. I have the compost bin and the licorice, but where do I find crucian carp feces? Can I get feces in the digestive pool? As I pondered this, I suddenly remembered the manure scoop blueprint I had obtained earlier, and then it all clicked. The manure scoop must be for going to the digestive pool to scoop out the crucian carp's feces. And just like that, I decisively used 5 pieces of wood to craft it. Then I added 5 pieces of licorice to the compost bin and went to the edge of the digestive pool. I dipped the manure scoop into it. When I pulled it out, the round bucket at the end was filled with a green, viscous substance. This must be the crucian carp's feces. Then I poured it all into the compost bin. The smell was quite strong. I quickly grabbed the lid of the compost bin and covered it. Next, I just have to wait for the fertilizer to be successfully made. In the time that followed, I took the weapon blueprint I traded from Zichu, Shu, and crafted it. It was a relatively long ancient blade, much better to use than the previous spike dagger. Then, I posted the clean-skinned barracuda on the trading channel, hoping to trade it for a relatively rare blueprint. Next, I crafted a large number of algae oxygenation tanks and frantically traded them for basic materials on the World Chat channel. By now, most people already knew me. Some were even guessing if I had obtained some kind of special ability, wondering how I had so many advanced supplies. After that, I used the spiked scale shrimp shells I traded for today to successfully craft the spiked chestplate. It weighed about 40 jin, but no matter how heavy, I had to wear it. At least it could protect my body. Before sleeping, I checked on the situation inside the planter box. The sprouted watermelon seed had now grown vines. This put me in a great mood. When I woke up again, it was the 7th day since I arrived in this world. The first thing I did was open the lid of the compost bin. Clumps of dark green dung flew out directly from inside. I was so scared I quickly dodged. Then, a prompt sounded in my mind. Obtained. Low. Grade. Fertilizer. X10. Using it can shorten a crop's growth time by 10%. My face lit up. Then I decisively grabbed a supply chest, and without a care, I reached in and put 8 of them inside. Then I went to the small planter box. I tried throwing the remaining 2 clumps of fertilizer into the planter box. The moment the fertilizer clumps touched the soil, they immediately melted into a dark green liquid and seeped directly into the soil. This should mean the fertilization was successful. It's quite convenient. Not long after, the sound of surging seawater came from the esophagus. The crucian carp was starting to eat. I quickly gripped the fishbone knife in my hand, crouched down, and entered a state of high alert, preparing for any potential dangers. Suddenly, the water surface surged violently. A flesh-colored, strip-like body that made my heart pound in terror appeared before my eyes. It was another bristlehead worm. My heart instantly skipped a beat. This thing almost killed me before. Every time I think about it, I'm filled with lingering fear. The feeling of fear surged up again. My hand holding the fishbone knife trembled uncontrollably, mainly because my stamina was also draining bit by bit, because the spiked armor on my body was too heavy, and I had been maintaining a semi-crouched combat stance. Time passed very slowly. Finally, the water level began to drop. This meant the crucian carp had finished eating. Next, as long as I wait for all the seawater to drain out, it will be much safer. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, the water surface suddenly exploded. A large mouth shot out and bit down on my helmet. Although I was startled, I quickly calmed down, because the 3 spikes on top of the spiked helmet once again blocked its mouth. Then, without hesitation, I swung the fishbone knife in my hand violently, hacking fiercely at the body in front of me. This weapon was much stronger than the spike last time. One slash cut halfway into its body. Then, a large amount of disgusting liquid flowed out. A piercing scream came from above my head. I remained unmoved and swung the fishbone knife again. And just as I was about to completely sever its body, the water surface exploded again. Suddenly, another bristlehead worm bit down on my spiked greaves. Then came a powerful pull, dragging me sideways into the water. I was horrified. I wanted to surface to breathe, but the force pulling on my head and legs was immense, and I was wearing a 100 kilograms spiked. Scale set, making it even harder for me to surface. Time passed, bit by bit. The feeling of suffocation grew stronger. In such a desperate situation, I knew I had to go all out. So, I steeled myself and used all my strength, slashing fiercely with the fishbone blade in my hand at the bristlehead worm biting my head. I don't know if it was because it was already severely injured, but after just 2 slashes, it let go of my head. My heart leaped with joy. Without a second thought, I dropped the fishbone blade, then flailed my arms desperately, slowly bringing my body to the surface. Then I gasped frantically for air. Immediately, the other bristlehead worm violently dragged me back into the water. Caught off guard, I swallowed several mouthfuls of seawater. Then, flailing my arms, I struggled desperately and surfaced again. But I had just coughed once before being dragged back into the water. I began to bob up and down like this, continuously flapping my arms. I knew that now, as long as the injured bristlehead worm didn't attack me, I could stall. The one latched onto my thigh. As long as I wait for the seawater to recede, it will be my time to counterattack. Finally, all the seawater drained away. The bristlehead worm had lost its leverage and could no longer drag me at all, but its 4 bristle-like teeth were still biting my leg. Fortunately, the defense of the greaves blocked its sharp mouth. This finally put my mind at ease. Knowing that I was safe, a wave of exhaustion instantly washed over my entire body. Then I looked for the bristlehead worm that I had injured, but one look and I was wide awake again, because the injured bristlehead worm was actually lying on the ground, sucking the crucian carp's blood. I immediately cried out in alarm. Then, I don't know where the strength came from, but I violently broke free from the restraint on my leg, picked up the fishbone knife I had dropped earlier, and killed the bristlehead worm by my leg in a few strikes. Then I quickly went to the one that was sucking blood. After several slashes, I finally killed it. The sunball worms are small, so it's fine if they suck a little of the carp's blood. But the bristlehead worm's mouth is so big, if I let it keep sucking, what would happen? I carefully pried the teeth attached to the stomach wall off. But then, I saw a round, bloody hole the size of a tennis ball appear on the stomach wall. Furious, I kicked the bristlehead worm aside. The problem now is how to stop the carp's bleeding. Suddenly, an idea flashed through my mind. Use the sunball worms. I quickly climbed onto the foundation, grabbed a sunball worm, and then pressed it onto the bloody hole. I saw its 4 small tentacles, tightly attached to the surrounding stomach wall, sealing the bloody hole perfectly. I was overjoyed. This method actually worked. At this moment, all crises were resolved. The overwhelming fatigue washed over me again, but I still couldn't rest now, because the carp's feeding stage wasn't over yet. The next wave of seawater would be coming soon. At this moment, I thought to myself, this set of spiked armor is heavy, but it protected me well during the attack just now. This shows how important equipment is. And at the same time, I realized a problem. When there's seawater in the carp's stomach, I don't need to be out in the open at all. I can just hide, wait until the seawater has completely receded, and then check if any creatures have come in. As for a hiding spot, it would naturally be behind the algae oxygenation tanks, made of stone. The first time I encountered a bristlehead worm in the water, I was standing in the corner space, formed by the algae oxygenation tanks. That's what blocked the bristlehead worm from attacking me underwater. And so, I struggled to move the algae oxygenation tanks onto the wooden platform. This severely compressed the space on the foundation. The area, which was only 6 square meters to begin with, now only has about 2 square meters of usable space left. And at this moment, I seemed to have used up the last of my strength. I felt extremely exhausted. I had no energy left to go down and move the seaweed. Sometime later, the crucian carp began to eat again. I hid behind the algae oxygenation tank as planned. I stayed hidden until the entire feeding stage was completely over. During that time, no other unexpected situations occurred. At this moment, I had finished eating the high-sugar canned food, and after resting for so long, my energy had recovered a lot. Finally, after confirming that there were no large creatures present, I went down and began to move the seaweed with peace of mind. 2 hours later, the seaweed was finally moved. I climbed onto the foundation, which had only a little space left, and began to rest. There were still 3 hours until the carp's next feeding. Just then, Sishu Shusui sent me a private message. Mr. Bai, I'd like to trade some things with you. I had no good feelings for this person. Plus, I was already very tired. So I replied directly, if you want a second algae oxygenation tank, then you'll need to trade a blueprint with me for it. Haha, Mr. Bai, you're mistaken. I want 20 algae oxygenation tanks and a full set of spike-scale shrimp shell armor. I couldn't help but laugh. Is this person mentally unstable, talking nonsense? Mr. Bai, first, take a look at what I want to trade with you. Gold silk fruit, the seed of gold silk seaweed. Using it can increase strength by 5 points. After reading this message, my whole body trembled. 5 points of strength. This is exactly what I desperately need right now. With these 5 points of strength, I can easily handle the heavy, spiked set on my body. It's currently my 7th day in this world. I've already obtained a full set of equipment made from spike-scale shrimp, but it weighs a total of 100 kilograms. For someone like me with low strength, wearing it is a huge burden. So, I traded on the World Chat channel for a plant called gold silk seaweed. The fruit it produces can increase strength by 5 points after use. This is what I urgently need right now. Then, I opened the seaweed planter box I had traded for earlier. I clicked craft on the blueprint. I saw a stone trough twice the size of the algae oxygenation tank appear before my eyes. 2 hours later, when the giant fish swallowed today's second supply chest, the seaweed planter box automatically filled with seawater. Then, I carefully planted the gold silk seaweed inside. Then I opened the supply chest. Obtained. Equipment, slot X1. I was stunned for a moment. Then I saw a prompt appear on the character status panel. After opening it, I found that a square box had been added to the interface. Finally, a prompt sounded in my mind. The equipment slot can instantly equip or store a weapon. I was instantly overjoyed. Then I tried to put my heaviest piece of equipment, the spiked chestplate, into it. After a flash of blue light, the spiked armor instantly disappeared from my body and appeared in the equipment slot. Then, with just a thought, the spiked chestplate reappeared on my body. I couldn't help but exclaim, "This equipment slot is really a great thing, and it should be possible to obtain more of them." Then, during the 3 hours waiting for the next supply chest to arrive, I continued to craft algae oxygenation tanks, taking them to the World Trading Channel to trade for basic materials. By now, the other survivors all knew that if they couldn't produce their own oxygen, they would suffocate and die while moving seaweed to help the crucian carp digest. So the number of trades I made each day was very large. As a result, my basic materials were now almost filling the 20-something supply chests I had. This was causing me a lot of trouble. How should I store the remaining supplies? Just then, the crucian carp delivered today's third supply chest. Obtained. Storage cabinet blueprint. I was stunned for a moment, then overjoyed. This is a godsend. Then I opened the blueprint. Storage cabinet. Blueprint. Materials required, wood X20. Great. It doesn't require many materials either. I immediately clicked craft. 20 pieces of wood immediately flew out of the supply chest, assembling in midair into a wooden cabinet, 2 meters high and 1 meter wide. According to the description in the blueprint, the storage cabinet has 100 slots inside. Each slot can stack 100 units of supplies. This means one storage cabinet can hold 10,000 units of basic supplies, and my current basic materials combined are only a little over 3,000 units. It doesn't even take up half the space in the cabinet. Most importantly, the storage cabinet has a small footprint. After placing it, I immediately transferred all the items from the 22 supply chests into it. Then I threw the useless chests into the digestive pool. On the 8th day since arriving in this world, as soon as I got up, I went to check on the gold silk seaweed. There was no change in the trough. I was slightly disappointed, but it was also expected. The gold silk fruit can increase strength by 5 points. Its growth time is definitely longer than other crops. Then I went to the small planter box. I was pleasantly surprised to see that the watermelon vines had already blossomed. At this rate, it probably won't be long before I can eat sweet watermelon, mainly because the food in the supply chests every day is basically dry bread. Only occasionally are there small amounts of fruit and canned food, but I'm reluctant to eat them. So for the past few days, I've been eating bread until I'm almost sick of it. Then I couldn't help but mutter, when can I get a change of diet? I'm really craving salty food right now. These past few days, both my body's need for salt and my taste buds' craving for salty flavors have made me constantly reminisce about the delicious food I used to eat. A few hours later, the crucian carp finished eating. I checked the carp's current status. Titan giant coon fish. Age, 9 days. Stage, juvenile. Length, 35 meters. Evaluation, a 220-ton little baby. I didn't expect that in 8 days, the crucian carp had already grown 5 meters. If I give it extra food, will it grow even faster and thus swim farther? By now, everyone else already knows that moving the seaweed can help the giant fish digest. So, although I'm currently in the lead, the others behind me have also started to maintain the same speed as me. Since this is a world of survival, I must continuously expand my lead. So, without another word, I directly crafted a second storage cabinet. Then, on the World Chat channel, I bought 10,000 units of low-value seaweed and put it all inside. Only then did I go to sleep in a good mood. When I woke up again, it was my 9th day in this world. In the World Chat channel, something incredibly terrifying was happening. The number of survivors in the top right corner began to decrease continuously. At first, the number dropped by tens and hundreds, but soon, tens of thousands of people were dying every second. So I thought about it and calculated the time. This should be the others starting to encounter the bristlehead worms one after another. The ones who have survived so far have also paid a considerable price. Then they all started asking me in the World Chat channel how I survived the crisis. Seeing these messages, my eyes instantly lit up. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Then I had New Ziku spread the news on the World Trading channel. The spiked helmet can defend against the bristlehead worms' attacks on the head. For a moment, the channel was like a pot that had exploded. Then they started frantically trying to buy from New Ziku. And at this time, I lent him the blueprint for the spiked helmet. and had him mass produce and trade them for me every day. And the requirement for trading for the helmet was 100 units of basic materials or 10 units of food or mineral water. Those who didn't have enough basic materials could also use metal ore as a substitute. And just like that, I once again greatly expanded my inventory, and I gave a share to Nayuziku. And when today's second supply chest arrived, after opening it, I actually got a pack of instant noodles. My face instantly lit up with joy. I can finally eat something salty. In the current survival environment, this isn't just braised beef noodles. It's practically a braised beef hot pot. Then, I sat on the supply chest, filled the instant noodle bowl with water, and then found the disposable heat pack I had gotten a few days ago. I placed it steadily underneath to heat it up. I also sliced up some spiked scale shrimp meat and put it in. I had an incredibly happy hot pot meal and spent the happiest day since arriving in this world. But on the 10th day, another unexpected event occurred. The supply chest didn't arrive at its usual fixed time, and I waited for an extra hour, but there was still no sign of it. Meanwhile, the other survivors were all in the world chat channel, showing off the good things they had just gotten. This meant that I was the only one with a problem, so I anxiously tried to figure out the reason. Just then, the membrane of the esophagus suddenly opened. My spirits lifted, and I quickly looked over, thinking the supply chest had finally arrived. But the entrance of the esophagus didn't have seawater, gushing in like every time before. My mind was suddenly in a whirl. What on earth is going on? This has never happened before. Suddenly, the crucian carp's thoughts echoed in my mind. I finally found a treasure cave. Why isn't that little person in my belly coming out yet? I was instantly shocked. I never expected that the crucian carp had always known I was living in its stomach. And now, it wants me to temporarily leave its belly, to go outside and find some good things. But I couldn't help but feel nervous. So many days have passed, and this is the first time I'm about to see the unknown world outside. Going out without knowing anything is obviously very dangerous. But since the crucian carp has clearly told me that this is a treasure cave, I have to make this trip. So, I first crafted a wooden shield and put it in my equipment slot. Then I put on my spiked armor, and with my fishbone knife in hand, I was fully prepared. Then, I slowly entered the esophagus. I looked up and observed my surroundings. The esophagus had a diameter of about 1.5 meters from top to bottom. I had to bend over to pass through, and because the ground was very slippery, I was very careful as I walked forward. After walking for about 7 or 8 meters, the space ahead suddenly opened up, but it was also pitch black. However, I wasn't afraid, because I knew my current location was inside the crucian carp's mouth. In this world, the safest place is inside its body. After continuing forward for another 5 or 6 meters, I saw a white wall with a texture like a brush. I reached out to touch it from a close distance. The entire wall was composed of long bristles, but it wasn't soft like a brush. Instead, it was as tough as bamboo strips. I guess this was the carp's baleen for filtering food. To get out, I definitely have to climb over this baleen wall first, but fortunately, it wasn't high. Only 2 meters. With a small jump, I climbed up. What appeared before me was a rock wall. Then, I walked on the baleen, feeling my way along the rock wall. Finally, I found a hole only 1 meter wide in diameter. The dark, enclosed environment made my heart pound. This should be the entrance to the treasure cave, but the space inside is really too small. If I want to enter, I can only crawl forward. If I encounter danger, it would probably be difficult to even turn around. But then I thought, whatever. The bigger the storm, the more valuable the fish. If I want to survive in this world, facing danger head-on is necessary. Recalling my previous near-death experiences, I knew that in this world, there was never a way to live safely. So, holding the wooden shield in front of me, I decisively crawled into the cave. The inside of the cave was still entirely made of rock. I lay flat on the ground, holding the wooden shield in front of me, just in case of any monster attacks. After crawling like this for about a dozen meters, my forehead was already covered in sweat. After crawling another dozen meters, I noticed the surroundings were getting more and more damp. Water had started pooling on the ground, and the deeper I crawled, the higher the water level got. It even took up half the space in the cave. This made me even more uncomfortable. My body was soaked in water, but I had to keep my head raised high. The posture was as agonizing as it could get. The main issue was, I didn't know if there were any weird creatures in the water. Suddenly, with a splat, something dropped onto my head. I quickly reached up to touch it and saw it was a glob of translucent slime. Disgusted, I quickly shook it off. Suddenly, something underwater brushed past my arm. I shuddered in sheer terror, jerking my hand up as if I'd been electrocuted. The splashing water made a loud noise that echoed endlessly in the silent cave. I forced myself to calm down. The murky water, combined with the dim lighting, made it impossible for me to see what was underwater. So, I looked up at where the slime had fallen from. One look and I was completely grossed out. The ceiling of the cave was covered in that slime. Overall, it looked like the trail left behind by some crawling creature, but I endured the disgust and kept moving forward. However, as I went deeper, the slime became more and more abundant. Even the underwater ground was coated in it, making my hands and feet slip. I couldn't get any traction at all. This slowed my crawling speed even further. I even slipped and fell into the water several times after that. So, I decided to just take a break first. But not long after I started resting, I heard a faint sound. It sounded like something was slowly crawling along the rock wall. I quickly turned my head to find the source of the sound. Finally, on the ceiling, I saw a flat, soft-bodied creature. It was completely transparent. I could even see its internal organs. It was only about 20 centimeters long. The creature didn't look terrifying overall, and it didn't seem to have any intention of attacking me. It was just slowly crawling on the rock wall, leaving a long trail of slime behind. I ignored it. By now, I had rested enough, and it was time to keep moving. But right at that moment, the water ahead suddenly churned with massive waves. This made my newly calm heart leap into my throat. Looking at the situation, it was clearly some large creature, rushing rapidly toward me. The next second, an even heavier wave crashed over. This time, it almost knocked me over completely. I knew that large creature was right on top of me. My heart was already in my throat. Suddenly, a terrifying impact slammed fiercely against the wooden shield. I couldn't block it at all. My entire body was shoved backward for more than a meter. At the same time, my internal organs were jolted by the crash. For a split second, my mind went blank. The sheer urgency of the situation made me forget the physical pain. I quickly thrust the fishbone knife in my hand, past the edge of the shield, stabbing out viciously. But I only heard a sharp clink. A crisp sound of hard objects colliding rang out from the giant creature. I thought, I'm doomed. The fishbone knife clearly couldn't handle this giant creature. It seemed its head was as hard as a rock. The giant creature also seemed to realize that my shield was acting as a defense. So, it started thrashing its body wildly. A massive rumbling echoed throughout the cave, and the sound of the wooden shield splintering could be heard. At this moment, my heart sank to the bottom. I felt like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. I knew very well that the moment the wooden shield broke, I was dead. In a moment of desperation, I hurriedly sent a message to New Zichu. New Zichu, quick, give me a wooden shield. New Zichu didn't say a word. He quickly crafted one and sent it over. And so, I put down the fishbone knife and held up the shield with my right hand as well. I thought, now I can only try to outlast this giant creature. After all, it can't keep spinning forever, right? But I can keep asking Niu Ziku for wooden shields. But even so, I still felt my chances of survival were slim, because holding up the shield also requires strength. I didn't think my strength could match that of the giant creature. Time passed bit by bit. I had lost more than 10 wooden shields. I was also exhausted to the extreme. At this moment, I felt death was near, but I didn't feel much fear, because this was my own choice. Crack, crack, crack. The wooden shield completely shattered, and I finally saw the full appearance of the giant creature. Its body took up 80% of the entire cave. Its overall appearance was like an earthworm. On the carapace of its head, there was a sharp, triangular bone cone. It was by rotating that bone cone that it had shredded more than 10 of my shields. Then, I saw the carapace split vertically down the middle, revealing the creature's hidden mouth. It was filled with sharp, thin teeth. At this moment, I finally resigned myself to my fate. I stopped resisting. I just felt that waiting for death was a form of torture. And just as the giant creature was about to bite me, a huge cry swept through the entire cave. It even caused a violent tremor. The next second, the crucian carp's thoughts actually sounded. You little worm, you're so annoying. How dare you block the way and not let my little person pass? Get out of the way. The giant worm-like creature, upon hearing this, abruptly stopped its biting motion. Its terrifyingly large mouth immediately retracted. Then, as if it had encountered its natural enemy, its whole body began to tremble. But my condition at this moment wasn't good either, because the sound wave formed by the carp's voice was too powerful. It passed through the cave and through my body. This also made my vision go black and my head spin. After recovering for a while, I looked carefully at the giant worm-like creature in front of me. I found that it was standing there blankly, not daring to move. So I boldly got up. Seeing this, the giant worm-like creature suddenly recoiled, and the next second, it disappeared without a trace. I couldn't help but find it a bit comical. To a 40-meter long crucian carp, it really was just a little worm. At this moment, I finally let out a huge sigh of relief. I leaned against the rock wall to rest. Then, through the system interface, I asked New Ziku for water and bread. After recovering some stamina, I picked up the wooden shield again and continued to crawl forward. After advancing for about 30 more meters, I came to a fork in the road. To avoid getting lost, I followed the right-hand rule and chose the right path. Then I crawled for another 30 meters. The space suddenly became much wider. I could even stand up straight. Then I cautiously looked around. I found that this was an oval-shaped space. In the very center, there was a pool of water, and in the water, there was actually a supply chest. I was instantly overjoyed. Finally, a reward. Then I quickly took it out and opened it directly. Obtained, glass X20. The expression on my face immediately turned to disgust. Just this? Although glass is indeed a very rare material, I haven't even seen anyone on the World Chat channel get it yet. The problem is, I don't have any blueprints that use glass as a material yet, but I wasn't too disappointed. There was still a fork in the road on the left just now. There should be a supply chest there too. Then I returned to the fork in the road from before. and entered the left cave. This time, I crawled for about 50 meters, but I actually encountered another fork in the road. I complained under my breath and once again chose the right path. After crawling for more than 30 meters, I once again entered an oval space. Sure enough, there was another supply chest inside. Obtained. Iron nails -10. 5. I was instantly overjoyed. I had originally thought that iron nails needed to be smelted from iron ore, but the oxygen in the stomach is limited. It's simply impossible to smelt iron ore, but I never expected to get them directly now. The previous iron dagger blueprint. Iron nails were one of the crafting materials. After confirming that there was nothing else around, I sent both supply chests to Ziku for safekeeping. Then I returned to the second fork in the road and decisively entered the left path. But this path was exceptionally long. I crawled for nearly 200 meters before finally crawling into a spacious area, and this space was significantly larger than the previous two, and the pool of water in the middle was very clear. Not only that, there was another cave at the back of the space. It seemed I could continue exploring. Then I first went to the center of this space. Just like before, there was still a supply chest here, but it wasn't in the water. Instead, it was placed on a rock platform, and this supply chest was even inlaid with a golden border. My eyes instantly lit up. Wow, you don't need to think to know that the contents inside must be extraordinary. And so, with an excited heart, I slowly opened the supply chest. Obtained. Small aquarium blueprint, iron greatsword blueprint, fishbone armor blueprint. At this moment, my excitement was beyond description. I actually got 3 blueprints. Then I opened the blueprint section of the system interface and started to look at them. The small aquarium only requires stone X10, glass X10, and sand X10. The iron greatsword requires iron nails X3 and wood X1. The fishbone armor requires a certain amount of large fish bones, gold silk seaweed fiber X100, fish fat X50, and silk seedhundrel. After reading it, I was stunned. The first 2 blueprints were no problem, because I have all the required materials. I can make them as soon as I get back, especially the iron greatsword blueprint. It can be said to be the strongest weapon currently available. The fishbone knife I have now is clearly no match for this kind of iron weapon. What's more, many people haven't even gotten a weapon yet. But when I saw the last blueprint, the fishbone armor blueprint, the materials required for crafting made me feel terrible. Apart from the gold silk seaweed, I haven't seen any of the other materials, and I only have 1 gold silk seaweed plant. I don't even know when I'll be able to collect 100 units of fiber, but I wasn't discouraged. Instead, I was even more motivated. All because the appearance of this armor set is too cool, and its defense must be amazing. After all, it's made from large fish bones. Its strength is naturally not something my current shrimp shell set can compare to. Shaking my head, I decided to get back to business. I sent the golden supply chest to Ziku again. Then, I crawled into the other cave in this space. This time, I only crawled for about 50 meters before entering a new space. After a quick exploration, I surprisingly didn't find a supply chest. Instead, in the central position, I found a staghorn coral. It was entirely blood red, and a thin layer of blood-like mist floated around it. I didn't know what it was exactly. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to touch it with my hand to see if I could unlock the creature encyclopedia and check the information on this coral. So, I carefully tapped the blood-red coral once. After nothing unusual happened, I opened the creature encyclopedia. It had indeed been updated, and it had unlocked 2 creatures. The first was called the gelatin worm. Length, 10 centimeters. Weight, 200 grams. A soft-bodied creature with strong regenerative abilities. Its body can be used to make hemostatic gel. My heart skipped a beat. This gelatin worm should be the flat, soft-bodied creature I saw earlier. It can actually be used to make hemostatic gel. I must catch a few on my way out. Then I looked at the second unlocked creature. Wasteblood coral bug. Length, 3 millimeters. Weight, 0.05 grams. Food type, blood. Tiny creatures that live in colonies on wasteblood coral. Can be used to make wasteblood powder. I was a bit confused. What exactly is this wasteblood powder used for? The description wasn't very clear, but no matter what, I was going to take it back with me. But how to take it back was a problem. The wasteblood coral bugs can't leave the coral in water. So I came up with a not-so-great idea. That is to ask Ziku for some stone, sand, and glass. I opened the blueprint interface, clicked to craft a small aquarium. Then, I filled it with clear seawater, put the coral inside, and then sent it to Ziku for safekeeping. After settling that, I continued forward. At the back of this space was another cave. With a sense of anticipation, I began to crawl. But soon, I discovered something different. This cave actually had 5 forks. For a moment, I was at a loss. How do I choose? Helplessly, I still chose the one on the far right. I don't know how long it took, but I suddenly felt a breeze blowing from ahead. I was instantly overjoyed. A breeze means the exit is up ahead. I immediately sped up. After a dozen or so meters, I finally crawled out of the cave. Then I started shouting like a madman. I'm out. I'm out. Ha ha ha. I couldn't help it. After crawling in the cave for so long, that kind of dark, oppressive feeling had once made me feel a bit desperate, but after the joy, I was completely dumbfounded. Why are there stars in the sky? Looking at the star-studded sky, I was completely stunned. Didn't I return to the crucian carp's mouth? Then where am I? It's been 10 days since I came to this world, and this is the first time I've seen the outside. Although it was night, the sea surface was not dark, because there were actually 10 moons in the sky. Just then, the crucian carp's thoughts echoed in my mind. Little person, how did you get outside? It's very dangerous. Come back quickly. I was startled. The crucian carp's voice sounded a bit anxious. Apparently, in its view, I was too fragile. Being alone outside was very unsafe, and I was very obedient. I immediately returned to the cave and started crawling back. But after crawling for a while, I encountered 2 more forks in the road. I was completely lost. I really can't find the way back. The crucian carp's thoughts sounded again. Little person, what's going on? There's still something on the right you haven't taken. My confused expression instantly turned to joy. It seems the crucian carp can sense the situation inside the cave. Then I can follow its guidance. So I obediently crawled to the right. After that, whenever I encountered a fork, the crucian carp would express its confusion, and then I would crawl according to its prompts. After 4 or 5 forks, I finally entered another space. It was filled with long strips of mud. I grabbed a handful with my hand. Then the system prompt sounded. Obtained 1 unit of dungeon worm feces. Hearing this, I was shocked. Then I quickly threw it away. Then I continued to search the surroundings. The crucian carp's thoughts just now clearly indicated that this was the place where the last treasure was hidden. But I searched for a long time and didn't find anything else. Besides mud, there was only mud. Could it be that these are the treasure? After some thought, I felt it made sense. After all, if it can only be used as fertilizer, maybe this dungeon worm feces can make the plants I grow in the crucian carp's stomach grow faster. So, I asked New Ziku for some empty supply chests and a shovel. As long as I finish digging it up, I can return to the crucian carp's stomach and get some good rest. Then, as I was digging, the small hill gradually collapsed. Suddenly, I saw something different. At the top of the small mound, there was actually a sparkling light reflecting off it. My heart skipped a beat. There was actually a treasure buried inside. So, I immediately sped up my digging until the entire mound was reduced to a small pile of dirt. I finally got a clear look at the object. It was a very peculiar-looking plant, about half a meter tall. Its stem split into 3 branches. A few leaves made of crystal grew on them, looking incredibly beautiful. At the end of the branches hung a fruit that looked like a stone. I had no idea what kind of plant this was, so I decided to touch it with my hand. But the moment I touched it, the stone dropped right off. Startled, I quickly caught it. The next moment, a system prompt appeared in my mind. Obtained rock fruit X1. I was stunned. This stone was actually the tree's fruit. Since it's a fruit, it looks like it should be edible, right? With that thought, I opened my mouth, ready to take a bite. But after hesitating for a second, I asked New Zichu for a bottle of mineral water to wash it first, before planning to bite into it. After all, this place was covered in the feces of the shield rock worms. Then, I popped the fruit into my mouth and bit down hard. But with a loud crack, I almost shattered my molars. The rock fruit didn't budge at all. There was only a shallow tooth mark on its surface. I hissed in pain, sucking in a breath of cold air. Then I thought about it for a moment. This must be some kind of nut-like food. This outer layer should be its protective shell. So, I went over to the rock wall and smashed it hard. Sure enough, the fruit cracked open. After peeling off the outer shell, crystal clear flesh was revealed inside. There was a white pit in the middle. Overall, it looked pretty much like a lychee. I put it back into my mouth and took a gentle bite. This time, I tasted a sweet flavor. The pit in the middle was even richer in fruity aroma. Ding! Strength +1, Constitution +1, Speed +1. My eyes instantly lit up. It actually boosted 3 of my attributes at once. Even though it was only 1 point each, I was already very satisfied. Then I started muttering to myself, I wonder if this stone fruit can repeatedly increase attribute points. So, I plucked another one and smashed its shell. However, I didn't hold out much hope when eating it. I had never obtained food that could repeatedly increase character attributes before. Strength +1, Constitution +1, Speed +1. At this moment, I froze in absolute shock. It actually gave me attribute points again. Then, I couldn't wait to reach out and pluck the last stone fruit. I wanted to eat it again to see if it would keep giving me points. But in that split second, I hesitated. This rock fruit should be plantable. Its growing conditions probably require it to be planted in this kind of feces. If I bring it back to the crucian carp's stomach, I could totally plant it and make it bear even more fruit. So, I gave up the idea of eating it and tucked it safely into my pocket. Next, I dug the plant out of the dung pile. Then, I sent it along with those boxes to New Zichu for safekeeping. At this very moment, this cave treasure hunt could be considered a complete success. Afterward, following the crucian carp's prompts in my mind, I accurately navigated through the branching paths. Along the way, I conveniently caught 10 gel planarians. I don't know how long I crawled, but I finally made it back to the entrance I came from. In the pitch-black environment, I was certain I had returned to the giant fish's stomach. At this moment, my constantly tense heart finally relaxed. Then, I put the armor into my equipment slot. Feeling light and relieved, I passed through the stone passage and returned to the stomach wall space. Looking at the scattered specks of light around me, I felt as if a lifetime had passed. Suddenly, the crucian carp's inner voice rang out. The little human is finally back. I can go to sleep now. So sleepy. Immediately after, the entire stomach space began to shake. The crucian carp started to move. It should be looking for a suitable place to rest. I smiled faintly, exhausted, because it wasn't time for me to sleep yet. Then, I asked for all the things I had stored with Ziku back. Then, I first planned to place the rock crystal tree, so I crafted a small planter box, buried the feces inside, and then planted the rock crystal tree on top. Then, I put the supply chests, as well as the iron nails and glass, into the storage cabinet. Then I placed the small aquarium containing the waste blood coral on the wooden foundation. Then I crafted another small aquarium and put the gelatin worms I had caught on my way back inside. The next day, when I woke up, I first checked my own body attributes. My strength has now reached 10 points. The evaluation has even changed to a healthy person who surpasses ordinary people. As long as I gain 5 more points of strength, I can easily handle the 100 plus kilogram spiked scale set. Then I checked the condition of the waste blood coral. Seeing that the coral bugs on it were all alive, I was relieved. But then a problem appeared in my mind. The waste blood coral bugs feed on blood. So where am I going to get blood? Soon, I thought of a good idea. That is to kill bristlehead worms like before. It has a lot of blood. One is enough to feed all the waste blood coral bugs. Then, my gaze turned to the other small aquarium. The gelatin worms inside can be used to make hemostatic gel. If I get injured by other large creatures later, the hemostatic gel can immediately have a powerful healing effect. Then I grabbed one, intending to test how strong its healing ability really is. I directly used the fishbone knife to cut it in half and put it in the small aquarium. After that, I just had to patiently wait and see how it recovered. Then I got off the foundation and checked on the gold silk seaweed I was so concerned about. And as soon as I got close, I noticed that it had clearly grown taller, and its whole body was even emitting a faint glow. At this moment, I couldn't help but get excited. After all, the fruit it produces can increase strength by 5 points, and the crafting of the fishbone armor requires its fibers. Therefore, the importance of the gold silk seaweed goes without saying. After calming down, I went to the spot where the watermelon was planted. I had only buried the seed a few days ago, and now it is already grown a fruit the size of a basketball. I couldn't help but marvel at the growth speed of plants in this world. Clearly, it won't be long before it's fully ripe. At this time, after checking everything, it was almost time for the carp's feeding stage. So I moved to the relatively safest inner side of the foundation, put on all my defensive gear, then opened the blueprint interface and clicked to craft the iron greatsword. 3 iron nails and 1 piece of wood instantly turned into a blue light, assembling before me into an iron greatsword. 1 meter long. I held it with one hand to feel the weight. Then I found that, although I already had 10 points of strength, I could only manage simple swings, and it was quite a strain on my wrist. So I tried holding the sword with both hands. After swinging it a few more times, I felt it was very uncoordinated, very awkward. After all, I was just an ordinary person in my previous life. I've never wielded a greatsword before. It seems I need to find time to practice swinging with both hands. Just then, the sound of surging seawater came from the esophagus. I immediately focused my mind, carefully observing the movements in the water, but the seawater just drained out calmly. As for this feeding, it didn't bring any dangerous creatures. The next 2 times were the same. It seems my luck is very good today, but the other survivors weren't so lucky. The number of deaths today increased significantly, reaching 500,000. The ferocity of the bristlehead worm is still something that many underdeveloped survivors cannot withstand. Then, I started moving the seaweed into the digestive pool, and during this time, Ziku also encountered an attack from a bristlehead worm, but I had given him a full set of spiked armor, and I had told him how to deal with it. Therefore, Ziku successfully dealt with the bristlehead worm. He told me about it afterwards, and expressed his gratitude. Hearing this, I was immediately overjoyed. I quickly had him send the bristlehead worm's corpse over. Then I put the blood into the small aquarium, where the waste blood coral was. The seawater inside quickly changed color. The waste blood coral bugs also became excited and began to continuously absorb the seawater. Then I took out a piece of seaweed from the storage cabinet and threw it in with the gelatin worms as their food. After finishing everything, I found that the watermelon was also fully ripe. So I immediately picked it and cut it into pieces and sat leisurely on the foundation, munching on it. I had thought about planting watermelons on a large scale before to achieve complete self-sufficiency without worrying about food and drink, but that would require at least 20 or 30 small planter boxes. The area required is currently something I can't reasonably accommodate. Although the stomach has grown a bit larger over the past few days, if I want to reasonably plant a large area of watermelons, I estimate I'll have to wait until the stomach grows to 100 square meters. Then, I sent a portion of the watermelon to Ziku. Then I thought of Zichu again. I had pondered before that since this world has a chat channel and a trading channel, then there will definitely be the emergence of teams and factions. So I plan to develop my own team as well. Therefore, I invited this woman, Zichu Chushu. She's very shrewd, so we might not become friends, but she might be a good person to work with. At this moment, I thought it was time to make this woman pledge her allegiance. So I sent her a message. Ms. Zichu, the blueprints you've traded for recently, shouldn't you contribute one to the team? Zichu Chukshu was clearly taken aback by me. Mr. Bai, I joined the team and not only did I get no benefits, but you're asking me for a blueprint right off the bat? Contributing to the team is your duty, and this is also the foundation for building our trust. Then, after some back and forth, I finally said, Miss Zichu, if you think my request is excessive, our team doesn't have to be formed. Seeing this, Zichu Chukshu immediately became nervous. She knew very well that the resources I held were currently the most in this world. Even if she built her own team, it would definitely not develop faster than me alone. So she decided to make this disadvantageous pledge of allegiance to me. And so, I began to choose from the blueprints she had. One of them, a blueprint for a stone mortar and pestle, immediately caught my eye. Waste blood powder. It needs to be made by grinding the waste blood coral. And an important part of the process is having a mortar and pestle. So I decisively made my choice to Zichu Chukshu. She didn't say much and sent it over directly. Then, I sent her some of the leftover watermelon. She immediately asked me how I got it. She was clearly a bit surprised. Hee. I grew it myself. If you also want to be able to grow your own later, then contribute well to the team. I knew this woman was different from New Ziku. New Ziku is very simple. Diligence is enough to make him work for me. But Zichu Chukshu needs to be motivated by benefits. After the conversation ended, I crafted the stone mortar and pestle. I planned to grind out the waste blood powder right away and figure out its use. At this time, in the aquarium, the seawater that had been colored by the bristlehead worm's blood had become clear again. Clearly, it had all been absorbed by the waste blood coral bugs, and the waste blood coral as a whole seemed to have grown a bit larger. It seems that as long as enough blood is provided, the growth rate of the waste blood coral will be faster. Thus, without any heartache, I broke off a small piece and put it in the stone mortar. First, I crushed it, then I began to grind it in a circular motion. I didn't know to what extent I needed to grind it, so I could only grind it as finely as possible. I don't know how long it took, but a system prompt suddenly appeared in my mind. Obtained, small portion of waste blood coral powder. After taking it, Constitution +3. For 10 minutes, Strength +5, Speed +5. Accelerates wound recovery. Can only be taken once a day. I was instantly overjoyed. The effect is insane. Although my strength has now increased to 10 points, wearing the 100 plus kilogram spiked scale shrimp set still puts some strain on my body when I move. Therefore, this 10-minute boost from the waste blood powder is a life-saving tool for me. Excited, I decided to test its effect right away. So I poured it all into my mouth and washed it down with a gulp of mineral water. Obtained Constitution +3, Strength +5, Speed +5. I immediately felt the blood in my whole body boil. My skin also began to turn slightly red. An unprecedented sense of power instantly filled my entire body. Then I immediately checked my character attributes. Panel, Strength, 15 points. Speed has reached an incredible 19 points, far exceeding that of an ordinary person. Then, I quickly put on the full set of spiked armor, holding the wooden shield and the iron greatsword. Although I could still feel the weight on my body, the burden was significantly less than before. At this moment, under the heavy pressure of this armor, I was able to run nimbly for the first time. However, I didn't clearly feel the 19 points of speed. It must have been suppressed by the weight. So, I took off the entire set of spiked armor and ran freely in the stomach space. Now, my speed could definitely beat the world record for sprinting in my previous life. Suddenly, the system prompt sounded again. 10 minutes have passed. Strength -5. Speed -5. The boost effect of the waste blood powder has disappeared. At this moment, my whole body just wilted. I felt as if all the energy in my body had been drained. No wonder it can only be used once a day. It turns out there's a negative weakening effect after the boost. Fortunately, the dangerous stage of the carp's feeding has already passed. Otherwise, in my current state, if I encountered any aggressive creatures, I probably wouldn't even have the strength to swing my sword. Next, during the period of recovering from the weakness, I returned to the wooden foundation and ate canned fruit to replenish my sugar, and I also sent the can to Nilziku. He quickly replied, "Big brother, thank you so much. I just killed a bristlehead worm and used up a lot of stamina. I really need to replenish it. You're welcome." After that, although I ate 2 cans of food to replenish my sugar, my expression was still listless. My eyelids were also getting heavy from sleepiness. This made me sigh. The side effects of the waste blood coral powder are really strong, but I don't dare to sleep right now, because in just over an hour, the carp will swallow today's first supply chest. To distract myself, I began to think intently. I wonder if the hemostatic gel made from the gelatin worm also requires the stone mortar and pestle. An hour passed slowly. The sound of water came from the esophagus. Today's first supply chest has arrived. I also put on my spiked armor and entered a state of combat readiness. This time, a clean-skinned barracuda came in with the water. Seeing this, I breathed a sigh of relief. After waiting for all the seawater to drain away, I jumped down and dealt with the weakened clean-skinned barracuda. Then I put away the spiked armor and opened the supply chest. Obtained Gold Ore X1. I was stunned. I haven't encountered many dangerous creatures these past 2 days, but the probability of getting ore is very high. I wonder which sea region the crucian carp has swum to now. Then, I decided to see how the gelatin worm I had cut in half earlier was doing now. So I went to the aquarium where they were being raised. I found that the seaweed had been almost completely eaten, and the number of gelatin worms had actually become 11. It's just that 2 of them were half the size of the others. I was a bit surprised. Could it be that the one I cut in half before has now become 2? What kind of recovery ability is this? No, to be precise, it should be regenerative ability. Then I reached in and grabbed a small gelatin worm and threw it into the stone mortar. I was preparing to test my idea. Then, I used the pestle to crush the gelatin worm's body. After all, it was a living creature, so I felt it was a bit cruel, but there was no other way. According to the gelatin worm's description, the hemostatic gel needs to be made from its body. But fortunately, it has no blood, so it doesn't seem too gory. Soon, the gelatin worm inside turned into a lump of viscogel. Obtained hemostatic gel. When bleeding heavily, apply the hemostatic gel to the wound for an immediate blood-stopping effect. It can also speed up the healing of the wound. My eyes instantly lit up. So this is how hemostatic gel is really made, and its effect is also very powerful. Before, the bristlehead worm had bitten a bloody hole in the stomach wall. Blood was constantly flowing out. I had no way to deal with it at the time. I could only use a sunball worm to plug the wound. Otherwise, I would have had to watch the stomach wall continuously bleed. And now, with the hemostatic gel, if any other creature bites the stomach wall in the future, I can also treat the crucian carp in time. Thinking of this, I felt that 10 gelatin worms were really too few. So I took the remaining 9 large gelatin worms and cut them all in half to increase their numbers. Then I took out 2 portions of seaweed from the storage cabinet and put them in the small aquarium. Then I put this portion of hemostatic gel into the storage cabinet. Then I divided the clean-skinned barracuda from earlier into 3 portions and listed them on the trading channel. I'm still trading for the food that accelerates the carp's growth, the encyclopedia fragments. Counting now, I've already collected 6 pieces. I'm still missing 4 pieces to form a complete encyclopedia, so I simply crafted a few fishbone knives and continued to list them on the trading channel, also to trade for fragments. I plan to collect them all at once now. Currently, in the eyes of other survivors, the fishbone knife is considered a top-tier weapon. Therefore, I'm taking a big loss by doing this. But I don't want to think about the gains and losses right now. As expected, as soon as the fishbone knife was listed, someone traded for 1. And not long after, the 3 portions of clean-skinned barracuda meat were also traded away. The fragments are finally all collected. Then I took out the 6 fragments I had collected before from the storage cabinet and placed them together with the 4 fragments in my hand. Just then, a prompt sounded in my mind. Titan Giant Coon Fish Accelerated Growth Food Encyclopedia. Fragments collected. Combine? I chose to combine without hesitation. The next second, the fragments in front of me emitted a blue light, converging into a screen. On it were recorded 5 types of food for the crucian carp. The first type is fruit grown by the survivor themselves. Feeding 5 tons can increase the crucian carp's growth rate by 10%. The second to 5th types are crimson seaweed, bamboo knot seaweed, gold silk seaweed, and golden king algae. All require feeding 10 tons to increase the crucian carp's growth rate. After reading the introduction on the encyclopedia, I was completely dumbfounded. I can't do any of these 5 foods right now. The first one seems the simplest. I just need to grow fruit in the small planter box myself. But where can I get 5 tons of it? I don't have that much area right now to place enough small planter boxes. As for the remaining 4 types, I've never even heard of 3 of them. This made me smile wryly, but it's not a complete loss. At least if I encounter the foods listed above in the future, I can recognize them immediately. Then I thought about whether I should try the first method in the encyclopedia. After all, 5 tons of fruit is still possible to achieve. As long as I sell small planter boxes on the World Chat channel, then other survivors can start growing fruit. Producing 5 tons that way would be a piece of cake. Then I can just buy it in large quantities. But the problem is, I don't want to distribute the small planter box yet. Therefore, I need to find 1,000 people who will follow my instructions. People who will do as I say. And they must also guarantee that they won't spread the news. But this is really too difficult to do. Just then, a private message happened to be sent over. Hello, expert. My name is Chusheng. I just formed a guild with over 1,000 survivors. We'd like to invite you to be our vice president. I wonder if we could have the honor of your presence? I was stunned for a moment. Then I asked, can you form guilds in the world system now? No, the guild was formed by us on our own. Then we started a group chat. One person's strength is ultimately limited. We all believe that by uniting, we can develop faster. I say, thank you for your invitation, but I don't want to join any organization right now. And just like that, I decisively rejected this Chu Sheng's invitation. And after that, many more guilds came to invite me to be their vice president, but I still refused them all, because the guilds aren't on the world system's platform. These self-formed ones rely entirely on the members' self-discipline. I feel it's very unreliable, and if I wanted to, I could totally form one myself. With that being said, forming a guild is indeed a very good survival method. You can pool the resources of many people together. For example, some valuable blueprints can be sold to each other more cheaply within the guild. But the premise is that everyone must follow the rules. Otherwise, it's very difficult to maintain. Just then, Zichu Chushu sent another message asking if I also wanted to form a guild. I'm not forming one, but you can form one in your name. After all, you were the one who proposed the method of moving the seaweed. You're still quite famous on the World Chat channel right now. I want to build one too, but what do I have to offer as a bargaining chip? That Chusheng's guild used a food blueprint as promotion. At this moment, I couldn't help but be speechless. This woman always beats around the bush when she talks. If you want something from me, just say it. Don't always try to lead me on. All right then, I'll be direct. I want the fishbone blade blueprint I traded to you back. Currently, weapon blueprints are rare. With the strength of the fishbone blade, it can definitely attract many resource-rich survivors to join. After she said this, I began to ponder. I now have the iron greatsword. Giving the fishbone blade blueprint to Zichu Chushu isn't out of the question. And if I'm always so suspicious and never trust her, then there's no point in bringing her into my group. All right, I can give you the fishbone blade blueprint, but you must return it to me every night. Of course. I never intended to keep it for myself anyway. After all, I don't have the materials to craft it. I asked you for it, just to show the people who joined the guild, to give them something to look forward to. I just didn't expect that you, Boss Bai, would actually agree. Could it be that you've gotten a better blueprint than the fishbone blade? We're on the same team. Don't spend all day trying to figure out your own people. Manage your guild, well, and I'll give you a reward. And so, I sent the fishbone blade to Tsichu Chuksue. The conversation also ended, and after only about an hour, she successfully established a guild called Survivors. The entry requirements for the guild are very high. You must contribute 300 units of basic materials. But even so, many people were still rushing to join. And at this moment, I was dressed in my armor, waiting for the supply chest to arrive. During this time, I was bored and checked the World Chat channel. I found that the survivors were all adding their guild names in front of their own names. Of course, this has a big drawback. That is, anyone can randomly change their guild name to impersonate a guild member. Therefore, the guild leader needs to record each member's profile picture. The name can be changed, but the profile picture is fixed. The system interface has a built-in camera function. After taking a screenshot, you can save and record these people's profile pictures. And Zishu Chusho also stipulated that, upon joining the guild, you must disclose your blueprint resources for everyone to share. And she also took screenshots of all this blueprint information and sent them to me. After receiving them, I started to look through them, but I found that most of the blueprints were of little value. For example, the wooden sword and wooden shield blueprints are both the most fragile equipment. Not long after, today's second supply chest arrived, and I found that this time, several creatures came in with the water, so I couldn't help but feel nervous. Fortunately, the seawater receded calmly in the end. I found that it was just 3 clean-skinned barracudas. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. Then I went down and opened the new supply chest. Obtained diving suit blueprint. I was ecstatic. No wonder Dree came at once. It turns out they were sent to me to make a diving suit. Then I used the blueprint. Crafting a diving suit requires 5 clean-skinned barracuda skins and 20 cloth pieces. So I used the spike to completely peel the skin off the 3 fish. Then I clicked craft. 20 cloth pieces and 2 fish skins flew out of the storage cabinet. The 3 fish skins in front of me simultaneously turned into a blue light, becoming a diving suit with a smooth exterior. My eyes instantly lit up. In this ocean world, a diving suit will definitely be very useful. The next day, as soon as I got up, I made a round of inspections. I found that the gold silk seaweed had grown 10 centimeters taller. The gelatin worms had also multiplied to 19. The waste blood coral bugs, because they hadn't absorbed any blood for a long time, seemed a bit listless. Not long after, the crucian carp began to eat. When the seawater flowed in, I found that there were only 2 sunball worms in the water and no other dangerous creatures. So I clicked to craft the wooden bucket blueprint I had traded for earlier. I planned to change the seawater for the waste blood coral first, but just as I was about to scoop up some water, something suddenly flashed on the water's surface. I quickly scanned the area but didn't find any creatures, but I still retreated to the inner side of the foundation, quietly waiting for the seawater to recede. After a long time, I still didn't find anything unusual, so I thought I was probably just being paranoid. Only then did I go down and pick up the sunball worms, placing them on the stomach wall to add some light to the space. Then, as I was about to start moving the seaweed, I suddenly heard a sound of something cutting through the air behind me. I turned my head to look and saw a blurry afterimage in front of me. The next moment, my chest plate was pierced and blood flowed from my chest. Fortunately, the protection of the armor meant I didn't receive a fatal wound, and the blurry object was also sent flying. But I had no time to worry about my injury, because several more of those whooshing sounds appeared around me. I quickly raised my arm. The iron greatsword appeared in my hand. The next instant, it collided with the blurry object. A spark was instantly ignited. Then, the blurry object was knocked away, but I had no time to celebrate because the attack from the other side had already arrived. So I quickly raised my other arm. A wooden shield appeared in my hand. With a thud, the blurry object got stuck on it. At this moment, I finally saw what this thing looked like. It was a creature shaped like a flying saucer, but there was no time to study it carefully now, because two more whooshing sounds of high-speed flight came from the surroundings. I immediately threw away the iron greatsword. With a thought, 20 pieces of wood flew out of the storage cabinet behind me, turning into a blue light, and assembled into a wooden door in front of me. The next moment, the other two disc-shaped creatures were both stuck on it, firmly wedged in, but I still didn't let my guard down. I listened carefully to the movements around me. Only after confirming that there were no other creatures did I put down the shield and the wooden door. Then I took off my chest plate. Then I took out the hemostatic gel I had made yesterday from the storage cabinet. At this moment, my chest was also a bloody mess. Then I took off my clothes, washed the wound with mineral water, and then applied the hemostatic gel. The wound was immediately sealed. The effect of the hemostatic gel was immediate. Finally, I wrapped it again with a hemostatic bandage. Only then did I completely relax. After washing the bloodstains off my clothes and putting them back on, I picked up the wooden shield and carefully studied the disc-shaped creature on it. It was circular overall. The serrated edge used for cutting was hard and sharp. It had 4 legs underneath. Then I opened the creature encyclopedia. Razor disc bug. Food type, blood. A parasite that lives inside giant organisms. It can easily take a person's life in the blink of an eye. Its body can be used to make saw blades. After reading the description, I felt my heart pound with fear. The bristlehead worm only appeared a few days ago, and now there's another, more dangerous parasite, and it's so small. It's very difficult to spot when it attacks. The bristlehead worm needs seawater to unleash its full power, but this razor disc bug is the opposite. In seawater, it will actually be unable to use its footing, and thus unable to unleash its amazing speed and jumping ability. Therefore, it will only attack when the seawater recedes. At this moment, I couldn't help but sigh. This crucian carp's stomach is becoming more and more dangerous. Then, I killed all of these razor disc bugs and put them in the storage cabinet to be used for making saws later. Then I opened the system interface and used the iron nails in the storage cabinet to upgrade the damaged spike set. Finally, I put on this new set of armor. Only then did I feel safe enough to start moving the algae. But this time, I was short on time. Just as I finished moving it, the carp's second round of feeding began. I still cautiously watched the movements in the water. I saw a flesh-colored, strip-like body roll over on the water's surface. It was a bristlehead worm. At the same time, I saw the same unusual flash as before. At this moment, my brows furrowed deeply. Misfortunes never come singly. This time, both dangerous parasites have come. If I wait for the seawater to recede like before, it definitely won't work. By then, if the bristlehead worm and the razor disc bug attack together, I definitely won't be able to handle it. So I made a bold decision. While the razor disc bug is in the water and won't attack yet, I'll take the initiative to go into the water and deal with the bristlehead worm first. And so I unleashed all my strength, took a deep breath, and leaped into the water like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. Before the bristlehead worm could even react, I swung my iron greatsword and hacked at it wildly. For a moment, seawater splashed everywhere. Soon, the surroundings were stained with color, and the bristlehead worm was finally cut in half by me. Then, I quickly dragged its corpse onto the wooden foundation and put it in the aquarium where the waste blood coral was. After all, I can't waste so much blood, and after doing all this, I'd already used up most of my stamina. So, I hid in the resting area again to recover, preparing to deal with the razor disc bugs after the water receded. During this time, I still kept a close eye on the water's surface, but I discovered something unexpected. The razor disc bugs had actually all gathered together. I was stunned. Could it be because of the bristlehead worm's blood? After all, razor disc bugs also feed on blood. Seeing this, my heart filled with joy. This is a good opportunity to catch them all in one go, because the razor disc bugs can't spin their bodies quickly in the water. They have no attack power. So I walked out of the resting area and slowly entered the seawater. Then, with a swift motion of my sword, I hacked at the body of one of them. The other razor disc bugs immediately sensed the danger. Their 8-legged structure is not suitable for moving underwater. Therefore, their escape speed is very slow. How could I easily let go of this weakness? I chased after them and hacked away. Soon, all 5 razor disc bugs were dealt with by me. Then I retreated back to the foundation. After waiting for all the seawater to recede and confirming that there were no other dangers, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. And the experience just now also taught me the weakness of the razor disc bugs. As long as I release blood in the seawater, I can attract them all over and then catch them all in one go. But there's a problem with this method. That is, Where does the blood come from? It's impossible to encounter a bristlehead worm every time. The simplest way is to use the crucian carp's blood. But of course, I wouldn't do that. After some thought, I still came up with a solution. I decided to buy bristlehead worm corpses. Then I can just store their blood and flesh in a wooden bucket. Now I control 2 guilds. One is brand new. The other is the one I had new Ziku form yesterday. I just need to have the 2 of them get the guild members to hand over the bristlehead worm corpses, and the people who hand them over can be given an increase in their guild contribution points. Next, during the carp's last feeding, I finally didn't encounter any more aggressive creatures. I looked at the top right corner of the world's system. The number of deaths today has skyrocketed again. It has decreased by more than 2 million people. I wonder how much it will increase tomorrow. After that, I contacted Niu Ziku and Zichu Chushu and had them collect the bristlehead worms for me. By the way, I also told them about the razor disc bug's information and weakness, telling them to be careful. And this information can be used as a guild reward to be told to those members with high contributions and loyalty. At this moment, after finishing everything, I also plan to go to sleep and rest. But just then, a system sound suddenly echoed in my mind. The Titan giant coonfish has swum a distance of 10,000 nautical miles. It is about to leave its birth waters. The newbie protection phase has ended. Based on the current speed, in one day, the Titan giant coonfish will cross the boundary sea and enter the deep blue sea. Hearing this news, my head suddenly buzzed. The expression on my face also froze. The past 10+ days of my life can be described as fraught with peril, but now the system is telling me that I was still in the protection phase. After this, in the unprotected deep blue sea, how dangerous will it be? When I woke up, it was the last day of crossing the sea region. I was surprised to find that the carp hadn't eaten it all today, and I heard its thoughts for the first time in a long while. Hey, there seems to be something over there. I was a bit confused. What good thing did it find? It's not even eating. Sometime later, the esophagus membrane opened. A large amount of seawater rushed in. I braced myself, observing if there were any dangerous creatures in the water. In the end, I found nothing, and I don't know why, but the seawater was very murky this time. Not long after, the seawater receded. I found that there wasn't even any seaweed this time. Instead, a large amount of mud and sand was left on the ground, and a white, round ball the size of an ostrich egg. I was stunned. What is this thing? Then I carefully walked down. After a careful observation, I found that it seemed to be a fish egg. After a quick touch, I opened the creature encyclopedia. Big-headed fish. Length, 20 meters. Weight, 100 tons. Food type, carnivorous. Description: a fish that likes to hide in the sand to hunt. It possesses a certain level of intelligence. The meat is delicious and edible. The teeth can be used to make weapons. I was a bit surprised. I touched a fish egg, but the description is for the adult form, and the phrase delicious meat, edible deeply attracted me, because in previous creature descriptions, whenever this phrase was mentioned, it always meant it could increase attributes. Then I gently cracked open the eggshell. Then I poured the flowing egg yolk into my mouth. An unprecedented fishy smell instantly rushed to my head, but I still endured it and swallowed it all. Consumed big-headed fish egg. Intelligence +1. The moment the prompt appeared, my brain suddenly felt an unprecedented lightness. This feeling was very magical. I never expected that 1 point of intelligence could bring such a big improvement, and I felt that my control over my body was also stronger. Suddenly, the crucian carp's thoughts sounded again. Oh, there seems to be more good stuff. I was stunned for a moment. Could this be a supply drop before the big battle? I thought. Then, while waiting for the crucian carp to swallow the good stuff, I glanced at the system interface. The number of deaths had increased a lot again. I estimate that by the end of today, the total number of deaths will reach 10 million, and this is still the protection phase. Then I quickly crafted 2 portions of waste blood coral powder and sent them to Niu Ziku and Zishu Shushu. After all, they are my people. I can't let anything happen to them. Sometime later, the seawater the crucian carp swallowed was still very murky. After the seawater receded, a large amount of mud and sand was left again. Still no large creatures. I walked down from the foundation again. I saw several shells as smooth as jade, lying in the mud and sand. White jade clam. Length, 20 centimeters. Weight, 8 kilograms. Description: a clam made of white jade. The meat is delicious and edible. The white jade shell can be absorbed by the Titan giant cunfish and grow into scales. My heart filled with joy. Another edible creature, and its shell can actually make the crucian carp grow scales. If this is true, then the crucian carp's survivability will be greatly enhanced. It's perfect for dealing with the unknown dangers of the deep blue sea. Then, I prepared to pry open the white jade clam. It was closed very tightly. After stabbing it more than 10 times, I still couldn't pry it open. Helpless, I could only hack at it fiercely. After hacking at it dozens of times, I finally smashed the shell completely. Then, I eagerly took out the palm-sized piece of meat and took a big bite. Consumed white jade clam meat. Strength +1. My heart filled with joy. Then I used the same old method to smash open the second one and ate it. but unfortunately, my strength didn't increase again. In the time that followed, the giant fish seemed to be constantly looking for things. Then the esophagus opened again. This time, a supply chest with a silver border actually flowed in. Obtained, Stone Foundation Blueprint. I instantly exclaimed in surprise. Without a second thought, I checked the required materials. Stone Foundation requires Stone X100. I decisively clicked Craft. Then, a square, 1 meter long cube of stone appeared before me. It looked very sturdy. Seeing this, I decisively crafted 5 more. Then, with another thought, I decomposed all the wooden foundations into blue light and replaced them all with stone foundations. Not long after, another silver-bordered supply chest arrived. Obtained Iron Nails X20. My eyes immediately lit up. Iron nails are very rare. In all the previous days combined, I had only obtained 5 inches total. A silver-bordered supply chest is truly something else. Just then, a private message was sent over. It was from Chusheng, the president of the Leviathan Guild. Expert, sorry to bother you. Our guild would like to get the few portions of clean skin barracuda meat you're selling. However, I don't have any valuable blueprints to trade with you. But yesterday, I got a card called the Crimson Locator card. I can't use it, but I know this card will definitely be useful in the future. So, I'd like to use it to trade with you. Is that okay? When I saw the message, the corners of my mouth curled into a wide smile. On the food encyclopedia for accelerating the carp's growth, there was a food called Crimson Seaweed. And this card, it must be used to navigate to that specific sea region. So, I decided to make the trade. A moment later, a notification about its use popped into my head. Obtained Feihong Positioning Card, used to locate the Feihong Sea region. I tried to use it right away, but it failed, just like before. I guess there must be some prerequisite. Perhaps I need to leave the Crucian Carp's birth waters first. A short while later, the Crucian Carp swallowed another supply crate. Obtained Modkin Ingot X5. Can increase the growth speed of golden silk seaweed. My eyes lit up instantly. The value of golden silk seaweed goes without saying, but its growth rate of only 20 centimeters over several days was honestly making me anxious. Now, I finally found some fertilizer for it. After that, the Crucian Carp swallowed a silver-rimmed supply crate. Opening it revealed 5 silver ingots. As for what silver ingots are used for, I have absolutely no idea, so I could only store them away for now. After some time, I felt the giant fish suddenly stop moving. At the same time, its thoughts echoed in my mind. Ooh, found another treasure cave. Hearing this, I immediately got excited. Doesn't this mean I'm about to score another huge haul? I quickly gathered my armor and weapons. Just like last time, I crawled into its esophagus. Along the way, I messaged New Zichu. I told him to be ready to send supplies at any moment, but I had barely taken a few steps when the esophageal membrane behind me suddenly closed. I froze. What's going on? Although I knew the Crucian Carp wouldn't harm me, the enclosed environment still made me nervous and uneasy. And in the next second, the entire space began to shake violently. The ground started to slowly rise and tilt. It seemed the Crucian Carp was lifting its head. The giant fish was suddenly rising and tilting upward. Then it pressed its mouth against the cave entrance. I lost my footing and fell backward, slamming against its esophageal wall. The walls here were incredibly smooth. I had no idea how I was going to climb up, but a moment later, the problem solved itself. A large amount of seawater flooded into the esophagus. It quickly rose to my neck. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly unequipped my heavy armor. By treading water, I rose with the water level. Soon enough, I was out of the esophagus and into the Crucian Carp's mouth. Then, just like the last time I went out, I climbed onto its whiskers and arrived in front of the cave entrance. I carefully peered inside. I realized this cave was a bit different from the last one. It was wider and sloped downward. The entrance was a few meters above the ground. There was no standing water inside. It seemed to be an air-filled cave. I put on my upgraded armor, with my iron greatsword and wooden shield in hand. I cautiously entered. After walking for a short while, I noticed a smell permeating the air, the foul stench of decay. The deeper I went, the stronger the smell became. It even made me want to gag. As I walked, I came across a fork in the path. I carefully approached and peeked around the corner. The next thing I knew, my heart skipped a beat in terror. In the next second, I dropped everything, all the things in my hands, and ran for my life. After running for a bit, I listened for any sounds behind me. It seemed that monster wasn't chasing me. Just then, the Crucian Carp's thoughts echoed again. Why did the little person run out? There's still stuff to get inside. My spirits lifted instantly. The fear was completely swept away. It seems the Crucian Carp has been watching over me, and its tone sounded very relaxed. That means whatever is in this cave poses no threat to it. With my confidence restored, I slowly started walking back. I mustered my courage and stepped around the corner. Only then did I realize this giant creature was already dead. The skin on its surface had begun to rot. Its lantern-like eyes were shriveled and dry. Only its exposed fangs remained intact, gleaming with a cold, sinister light. I then checked the creature encyclopedia. Saber-toothed eel. Length, 72 meters. Weight, 160 tons. Type, carnivore. Hides in caves to ambush passing creatures. Its sharp fangs can pierce through a creature's body. Flesh is firm and edible. Fangs can be used as weapons. I shuddered. If I had run into a live one of this size, the crucian carp really wouldn't have stood a chance. Next, I prepared to harvest the teeth that could be crafted into weapons. I took a rock and hammered at them a few times. I thought it would take a lot of effort, but surprisingly, a tooth came loose very quickly. I picked it up and looked. The root of the tooth was shaped like a hilt. It looked like it could be used as a weapon directly. Seeing this, my heart filled with joy. I pulled out all 30 teeth in one go. I sent them to New Zik-Chu for safekeeping. After that, I left the corner and continued forward. After about 100 meters, I finally reached the end. A golden light flickered up ahead. As I got closer, I saw a stone pedestal at the end. On it sat a pure gold supply crate. My eyes immediately lit up. The supply crate in the last cave was only gold-rimmed, and it gave me 3 rare blueprints. I hurried over and opened it. A brilliant golden light radiated from within. Ding! Obtained. Titan Giant Coon Scale Armor. Its ultimate recipe is a unique possession. I gasped inwardly. Although I don't know the specifics of this recipe yet, just hearing the word ultimate and the fact that it's unique, I knew it had to be something extraordinary. I immediately checked the recipe's contents, but I was completely dumbfounded. Apart from the first ingredient, which was described, all the others were question marks. I figured it probably needed to be unlocked step by step. And just looking at the first ingredient, I knew this was something I couldn't possibly craft right now. I sighed and put the recipe away, preparing to leave. But a question suddenly popped into my mind. Getting such a precious pure gold crate, wasn't it a little too easy? And that saber-toothed eel, it must have been guarding this gold crate, but it died for some unknown reason. That's how I got lucky. What on earth could kill such a massive creature so silently? Could it be? Some large creature from the deep blue sea swam over, and did this? At that thought, an uncontrollable chill ran down my spine. Soon after, I returned to the cave entrance. I took off my gear and jumped into the crucian carp's mouth. It knew I was back. It slowly opened its esophageal membrane. The water level in the esophagus gradually lowered. I safely returned to its stomach. After a quick look around, I found that, thankfully, this place was mostly unaffected by the crucian carp's tilting. Only the small aquarium and the seaweed planter box had some water spill out. The next day, not long after I woke up, a series of system notifications sounded in my head. I was now far ahead of the other survivors. I was the first to enter the perilous deep blue sea. The world system then informed me that I had obtained the world's only title. Forerunner allows free allocation of 5 attribute points, which can be refunded at any time. If the leading position is lost, the title will be transferred. Then, the system notification sounded again. Please use the Steel Armored Leviathan Extermination Scroll as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will be hunted by the Steel Armored Leviathan. At first, I was shocked. Then I opened my character status panel. I saw that next to my name, the title Forerunner had been added. I added 5 points to strength. Then I tried to figure out how to refund them. I discovered I just had to click on the title. I was overjoyed. These 5 attribute points were incredibly versatile. When facing danger, I could put them all into speed to escape. If escape was impossible, I could immediately switch them all to strength and fight for my life. But then, I became nervous again, because I had just noticed. In the character evaluation section, it said, infected with anoxic bacteria, a person who is currently sick. After a moment, I thought back on the last 2 days. The reason for this anoxic bacteria infection could only be from entering that treasure cave yesterday. Thinking about it carefully, that massive saber-toothed eel, the reason it died without any external injuries must have been because of this bacteria. That would explain everything. But now, I don't know what to do. After all, this bacteria could even kill a giant creature, so it's definitely not something I can fight off. I kept telling myself to calm down, thinking it through. I should have been infected since last night, and all day today. I haven't felt any discomfort. So, this anoxic bacteria probably isn't extremely virulent. With no treatment available for now, I can only rely on my body to endure it. So, I took those 5 attribute points and put them all into Constitution. After setting that matter aside for now, I took out the item I got before from the storage cabinet, the Steel Armored Leviathan Extermination Scroll. On it, a 3-day countdown had appeared. I knew that once these 3 days were up, the Steel Armored Leviathan would lose its patience completely and start hunting the crucian carp. At this moment, I couldn't help but feel nervous. My crucian carp is only a dozen days old, and 2 types of highly aggressive parasites have already appeared inside it. Therefore, I can't imagine an adult Leviathan-class crucian carp that hasn't been cleaned out for a long time. How many parasites would be in its stomach? Right now, I truly feel like my end is near. Suddenly, the crucian carp's thoughts echoed in my mind. Finally found it. So scary. I have to get back quickly. I was stunned, not understanding what was happening. Then I heard a system notification, entering birth waters. I was stunned again. Why did it come back? But it didn't take long for me to figure it out. It must be getting dark outside now. The crucian carp is probably planning to rest for the night in its safe birth waters. And as I expected, after returning to the boundary waters, it stopped moving. But what I didn't expect was, it suddenly opened its esophageal membrane and let in a large amount of seawater. After the water receded, I saw a deep blue treasure chest. I realized this must be what the Crucian carp had just risked finding. I immediately opened the chest. Ding! Obtained. Right to duel. How to use? Challenge any survivor to a duel. If you kill the opponent, you will obtain all of their supplies. My heart couldn't help but grow heavy, because this deep blue chest is probably something everyone can get, which means many people will have the right to duel in the future. That will inevitably lead to a situation of mutual plunder. This isn't a right to duel at all. It's a switch for desire and greed. Right now, I can only hope the other survivors know their limits and don't come looking for a duel with me. But then, I realized how ridiculous that thought was. There will definitely be people who want to challenge me, hoping to win big with a small stake. And there won't be just a few of them. But thankfully, I'm currently leading the other survivors by a distance of 3 times. I still have a lot of time to develop myself. Then, more supplies came out of the deep blue chest. Ding! Obtained mineral water, food, canned meat, food. I was thrilled because these were all canned chicken, beef, and pork. These were things that other people in this world simply couldn't get. Ding! Obtained seaweed x 200,000. I was shocked, not because of the 200,000 units of seaweed, but because of the capacity of this deep blue chest. After all, one of my storage cabinets can only hold 100,000 items. With this deep blue chest, I no longer have to worry about running out of storage space with nothing else to do. I built 2 wooden foundations to use as a resting area. Then I went to sleep along with the Crucian carp. The next day, I woke up and stretched my body. I found that apart from some fatigue, there was nothing else wrong with me. It seems that 20 points of constitution can help me resist the bacteria for a while. Just then, the system voice sounded. Ding! Entering the deep blue sea. The Crucian carp started swimming forward again, and my heart grew tense along with it. What kind of dangers lurk in this deep blue sea? Yesterday, it made the Crucian carp flee back so decisively. Suddenly, a huge humming sound echoed in my ears, and it seemed to be getting closer. The vibration made my eardrums ache. Then, the stomach space lurched violently. I was sent flying sideways. Thankfully, the stomach wall was soft, so I wasn't injured, but the violent shaking made my head spin. A series of dull explosions sounded one after another. It was as if a heavy bomb had detonated in the water, and the explosion was right next to the Crucian carp. I almost passed out. If my constitution wasn't at 20 points, I might have been killed by the shockwave alone. Immediately after, the Crucian carp's urgent voice echoed in my mind. Hide, hide. Although I didn't know what was happening outside, it wasn't hard to guess. Some kind of giant creature was hunting the giant fish. Suddenly, the booming explosion sounded again, and they kept getting closer. I was thrown into the air again. I knew. It must be that giant creature attacking. My heart was in my throat. The reason I was being thrown around was clearly because the Crucian carp was trying to dodge the attacks. By twisting its body violently, I clung tightly to the wooden post under the foundation. There was nothing I could do right now. All I could do was pray that the Crucian carp could escape the hunt. The space inside the stomach was shaking violently. The Crucian carp was fleeing from a much larger creature. I held onto the wooden post for dear life. I prayed the Crucian carp could escape. Suddenly, its excited thoughts echoed. Almost there. Almost there. A few seconds later, I heard a massive impact from the rear of the stomach space. It was that creature, frantically ramming against a mountain. It seemed extremely unwilling to give up. Not long after, I felt the giant fish's swimming speed slow down. The sound of the impacts grew more distant. I figured we were safe now. At the same time, I understood. The birth waters that were previously in a protected phase weren't to protect us survivors. They were to protect the Crucian carp. The moment it entered a new sea region, it was immediately hunted by a giant creature. After some time, the Crucian carp's thoughts echoed again. Yay. Finally found something to eat. I immediately tensed up. I quickly put on my gear and hid in the safe zone on the foundation. Now that we're in a new sea region, I guess the Crucian carp's feeding phase will be even more dangerous. Soon, the esophageal membrane opened. Seawater rushed in. Nothing unusual happened during that time, but after the water receded, I saw 5 oval-shaped shells. Soft bodies emerged from each of them. They looked like snails. Then, their heads suddenly transformed into maws full of sharp teeth. They plunged into the stomach wall and began to suck the giant fish's blood. Seeing this, I became furious. Damn it, more parasites. I quickly raised my iron greatsword and swung at one of their heads. The creature quickly retracted its body. I struck its shell hard. With a loud clang, it felt like I had hit a rock, but the shell only had a shallow scratch. I was stunned. I didn't expect it to be so tough. I hardened my resolve and struck it 5 or 6 more times. Finally, I managed to break the shell and kill the creature inside. Then I checked the creature encyclopedia. Ancient armored sucking worm. Length, 30 centimeters. Weight, 10 kilograms. Food type, blood. A parasite with a hard bone armor. Bone armor can be used to make armor. I relaxed a little. The description didn't say this parasite was aggressive. Next, I planned to take care of all of them, but I didn't want to destroy the hard shells that could be used to make armor. So I walked onto the foundation and took out an iron ingot and some wood from the storage cabinet. I opened the blueprint interface and crafted an iron dagger. Then I approached one of the armored sucking worms. and stabbed it directly through its shell. Soon, the armored sucking worm inside was minced to death. I repeated this process several times. In the end, I obtained 12 complete bone armors. I put them into the storage cabinet. Next, I started moving the seaweed. My mind started to ponder. Today, the giant fish is feeding. Time was much later than usual. It was all because it was being hunted earlier. As a result, it missed many places with food. This situation might happen many more times in the future. So I decided that from now on, I would use new Zichu and Zigong Chushe's guilds to collect a large amount of seaweed. That way, I can proactively feed the crucian carp until it's full. After all, it needs to be well fed to have the strength to escape being hunted. An hour later, I finished moving all the seaweed. After the crucian carp finished digesting, it started swimming again. It entered the phase of swallowing supply crates for the day, but not long after, it suddenly cried out. Its tone was clearly filled with anger. "Damn it, don't run!" Before I could figure out what was happening, the entire stomach space suddenly flipped over. A supply crate the crucian carp had just found was suddenly snatched away, so it chased after the creature and slapped it with its tail. After the stomach calmed down, I saw the esophageal membrane open. The crucian carp was guiding me to go outside, so I put on my gear and walked into the esophagus. But as soon as I reached its mouth, I was startled, because a massive, bloodshot eye was staring straight at me. I quickly calmed down. Since the crucian carp felt safe letting me out, it meant there was no immediate danger outside. So I boldly went forward to check. I found that the creature had been completely smashed to death by the crucian carp. Its body was covered in huge scales that reflected a faint metallic sheen. I then checked the creature encyclopedia. White-scaled fish. Length, 8 meters. Weight, 4 tons. Food type, carnivore. A small fish that likes to snatch things. Flesh is edible. Scales can be used to make armor. Seeing the word edible, my eyes lit up. I wonder what stats it will give me. At the same time, I guessed. The supply crate had probably been swallowed by this white-scaled fish, so I planned to cut open its belly. Looking at the white-scaled fish's hard scales that could be used for armor, I knew cutting open its belly would be very difficult. So, I reallocated the 5 free attribute points from the Forerunner title, all to strength. But the next second, I started coughing. The drop in constitution allowed the anoxic bacteria to affect me, but I couldn't worry about that now. I raised my iron greatsword and swung down hard. The white-scaled fish's belly was instantly cut open. Then I quickly reallocated the 5 free attribute points back to constitution. Only then did my body return to normal, and at that moment, I realized my physical condition was clearly getting worse. A large amount of blood flowed out from the white-scaled fish's belly, along with many organs that had been crushed by the crucian carp. Soon, the supply crate also flowed out. I was a little disappointed. I didn't expect it to be just a common supply crate, but at least I had this white-scaled fish as an extra reward. I then cut off some of its flesh and ate it. Consumed white-scaled fish meat. Constitution +2. I was overjoyed. Now the anoxic bacteria will have less of an effect on me, but I was actually hoping for an increase in strength. Because the Steel-Armored Leviathan Extermination Scroll's deadline is in 2 days. When the time comes, if I want to survive the attacks of numerous parasites, I must have enough strength. I then cut off some of the white-scaled fish's scales and put them in the supply crate. Then I returned to the stomach space to sleep and rest. The next day, the crucian carp, thankfully, wasn't hunted by large creatures like yesterday. It finally had a smooth feeding session. I let out a sigh of relief. It seems this deep blue sea does give you some time to breathe. At this moment, I also breathed a sigh of relief. It seems this deep blue sea still gives people time to catch their breath. Afterward, I vigilantly observed the situation in the water. I spotted 2 familiar creatures. It was a hairy-headed worm and a few razor flatworms. To me, right now, they no longer pose the slightest threat. Because of this, I actually felt a sense of familiarity. Then, just like before, I first jumped into the water and took care of the hairy-headed worm. Next, using its blood, I successfully lured the razor flatworms to gather around. Finally, I wiped them all out in one fell swoop. At this moment, I thought to myself, this is way too easy. If only the things I encounter every day from now on were these familiar parasites. That would be great. Afterward, I turned around, planning to climb onto the stone foundation, but I instantly froze, because I saw that the foundation had entirely turned into wood. Then, massive ripples formed behind me. I immediately turned my head, only to find the water surface was perfectly calm. A chill instantly rose in my heart, and I quickly realized that I seemed to have fallen into some kind of hallucination. So, without hesitation, I slashed my own thigh. When I stabbed my thigh to force myself awake, I saw a soft-bodied creature that had already shoved several tentacles into my mouth. It seemed to be pumping something inside. At the same time, 2 other tentacles were pressing down hard on my head. A surge of viciousness rose in my heart. I fiercely swung my iron broadsword, chopping off those tentacles. Then, I hurriedly stuck my fingers down my throat, trying to throw up whatever that creature had pumped into my body. Immediately after, I vomited out a glob of slime. My fingertips were covered in densely packed insect eggs. It was absolutely disgusting. I continued to force myself to vomit, wanting to purge all the eggs from my stomach. Suddenly, an ear-piercing sonic wave rang out. My mind grew hazy once again. The surrounding environment changed its appearance once more. This time, I was standing in the seawater. Not far in front of me was a hairy-headed worm, faintly visible in the dim environment. I immediately cursed out loud, knowing I was being controlled by the illusion again. I quickly focused my mind and broke free from the hallucination once more. At this point, I didn't care if there were still eggs inside me. I raised my iron broadsword and charged straight at the soft-bodied creature. But the closer I got to it, the more chaotic my consciousness became. So, throwing caution to the wind, I closed my eyes and just started hacking wildly. I didn't even care if I was hitting it or not. After swinging continuously for over a dozen times, my consciousness finally stopped being chaotic, and that soft-bodied creature had been chopped into several pieces. It was completely dead. I had also exhausted almost all my strength. So, I slowly backed up to the stone foundation, panting heavily. Then, I opened the creature compendium to check it out. Phantom Dream Anemone Worm. Length, 3 meters. Weight, 40 kilograms. Diet, blood. A parasite that lives inside giant creatures. It makes humans fall into hallucinations by waving its tentacles and then implants its eggs into the human body. The eggs absorb human blood to accelerate their growth, eventually bursting out of the body. Its bodily fluids can be used as a replacement agent. After reading the description, I couldn't help but start worrying, because I wasn't sure if I had vomited out all the eggs just now. Were there still any left inside my body? So, I started drinking water frantically and continued to induce vomiting. It wasn't until a while later, when I was completely exhausted from throwing up, that I finally stopped. Next, I started using a wooden bucket to collect the bodily fluids of the Phantom Dream Anemone worm, because the description just said its fluids could be used as a replacement agent. But during the collection process, I was still constantly being affected. However, since I was mentally prepared, I only felt a momentary daze each time, and then I would quickly recover. After dealing with the corpse of the Phantom Dream Anemone worm, I saw another cracked, oval-shaped bug shell split in half. I tapped it with my iron broadsword, and found that although the shell looked very thin, its texture was incredibly hard. I picked up one half without much effort. It was very light. Ding! Obtained. Dream Anemone Worm Protective Shell. I was stunned. I didn't expect this to be a material, but I don't know what it's used for yet, so I put it in the storage cabinet for now. After that, the crucian carp's feeding phase was peaceful. I didn't encounter any more strange creatures. While I was moving the seaweed, I kept worrying about whether I had vomited up all the eggs. Suddenly, I thought of the character status panel. It should show my current status. I quickly opened the evaluation section. Sure enough, it had changed. A person infected with anoxic bacteria, and with dream anemone parasite larvae in their body, doomed to die soon. After reading it, I sighed helplessly. So, I really am infected with parasites, and I'm doomed to die soon. I walked back to the storage cabinet and took out the box of anti-inflammatory drugs I got a few days ago. Although I knew it was useless, I still swallowed one pill, just to give myself some peace of mind. Not long after the seaweed was moved, the giant fish began its phase of swallowing supply crates. After the water receded, a common supply crate floated in. Ding! Obtained. Furnace blueprint. I knew this furnace was naturally for smelting metal, but the smelting process requires extremely high temperatures, which means it will consume a large amount of oxygen. But the oxygen content in the stomach space is already low. Although I have the algae oxygenator, the oxygen it produces definitely can't support the consumption of a furnace. Not to mention, during the smelting process, it might produce harmful gases like carbon monoxide. And just as importantly, the furnace needs fire. But I don't have any fire-starting tools right now. After thinking it through, I realized that smelting is impossible for now. I'll have to wait until later. After the crucian carp finished swallowing supply crates, I plan to go to sleep. The countdown for the steel-armored Leviathan extermination scroll only has about 20 hours left. Therefore, I must make all pre-battle preparations tomorrow. I just woke up and I'm not in a good state, because last night, I dreamed that the dream anemone larva inside me burst out of my body. There were so many of them, it was disgusting. So now, the pressure of both internal and external threats is weighing heavily on my mind. After adjusting my mentality, I reluctantly took out the item I had placed in the storage cabinet, the rock fruit. I plan to eat it before tonight, to see if it can increase my stats for a third time. During the crucian carp's feeding phase, I only encountered a wave of razor discus worms and a wave of ancient armored sucking worms. I didn't encounter any new creatures that could increase my strength after being eaten. And after that, the crucian carp only swallowed one supply crate, because halfway through, it was discovered by some large creature, so it began another life or death escape. It hid until nightfall, so I didn't get the other 2 supply crates. The crucian carp has stopped moving and started to sleep. I knew that delaying any longer was pointless. I began my final preparations. I took out the rock fruit. I cracked its shell on the algae oxygenator. Then I swallowed the transparent pulp inside. Ding! Consumed rock fruit. Strength +1. Constitution +1, Speed +1. I was instantly thrilled. This rock fruit can actually continue to increase my stats. I just don't know how many more times it can be used. That night, I went out to the treasure cave. I really found a treasure. I glanced at the rock gold leaf tree behind me. I saw that leaves had already grown on it, and it had borne fruit the size of peanuts. This made me feel an urgent desire to make its fruit mature faster. I then looked at my own status panel. With a thought, I reallocated the 5 free attribute points from the Forerunner title to Strength. My strength instantly reached 17 points. I immediately felt like the armor on my body had lost its weight. It felt like I was just wearing a cotton jacket. But right after, I started coughing. My constitution dropping to 18 points made me feel very weak. But there was no other way. Right now, I had to push through and increase my strength so I could have a higher chance of surviving in the stomach of the steel-armored Leviathan. Afterward, I took out 2 iron ingots and upgraded my iron broadsword once. Then, I grabbed 6 gel planarians and ground them into 6 portions of hemostatic gel. I also took out a portion of boiling blood coral powder and put everything into that deep blue treasure chest, capable of storing 200,000 supplies. I plan to bring it along with me into the body of the steel-armored Leviathan. Finally, I told New Zichu to be ready to support me at any time. With this, everything was pretty much ready. Then, I picked up the steel-armored Leviathan summoning scroll. I loudly said, "Use." As soon as the words left my mouth, the scroll immediately emitted a golden light. Finally, it transformed into a giant fish clad in steel armor. After soaring in the air for a moment, it suddenly opened its massive mouth and swallowed me whole. Immediately after, I disappeared from the stomach wall space. The next second, I appeared in a pitch-black space. The ground here was extremely damp, and the air carried a fishy stench that made me a bit nauseous. I immediately opened the creature compendium. Steel-armored Leviathan. Stage, adult. Length, 300 meters. Weight, 200,000 tons. Diet, carnivorous and iron ore. Description: a giant fish species that loves to devour iron ore. Its scales and teeth are made of bone steel, which can be used to craft armor or weapons. It can also be absorbed by the phantom Leviathan to grow bone steel scales. After reading the description in detail, I couldn't help but scratch my head. Even though I knew which parts of the steel-armored Leviathan were the most useful, the problem was, how on earth would I have the ability to pry off its scales and teeth? I couldn't worry about that right now. I scouted around in this dark space, and finally confirmed that I was currently inside the steel-armored Leviathan's mouth. There shouldn't be any danger here for now. So, I decided to do 2 experiments first. First, could I craft items here? With a thought, a wooden shield appeared in my hand. I rejoiced inwardly. Crafting items was no problem. Second, could I place foundations? This point was extremely crucial. If I could successfully place them, then this process of clearing out the parasites would be much easier. With another thought, a wooden foundation actually appeared before my eyes. I couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. Afterward, I fumbled around in the steel-armored Leviathan's mouth for quite a while before finding a massive hollow opening. That was the steel-armored Leviathan's esophagus. I knew that this place must be filled with many risks I had never encountered before. After mentally preparing myself, I carefully and slowly walked inside. After advancing over 30 meters inside the esophagus, I finally saw the scene inside the steel-armored Leviathan's stomach. In an instant, I felt my scalp go numb. I saw a dense, countless swarm of parasites slowly moving about. The space here was vastly larger than the crucian carp's stomach, but it wasn't dark because there were a large number of sun orb worms emitting light. Moreover, their sizes were many times larger than the ones I had encountered before. After hesitating for a good while, I slowly walked into the stomach wall space. Among the swarm, there were hairy-headed worms I recognized, armored beetle worms, and razor flatworms. But there were even more that I didn't recognize. They all looked bizarre and grotesque. Most of them were currently sucking the blood of the steel-armored Leviathan. Because of this, the stomach wall was bitten full of potholes. There was hardly a single intact area to be seen. Many places were festering and rotting. Bitterly, I prepared to retreat into the esophagus to rethink my strategy. But the next second, a flesh worm with a mouthful of sharp teeth appeared in front of me. It opened its mouth and lunged to bite. In a flash, I reacted quickly. I narrowly dodged the flesh worm's attack. Then I swung my greatsword and chopped off its head with one blow. With this commotion, the parasites within a certain range all noticed me, the uninvited guest. So the moment the flesh worm's head hit the ground, 3 spearhead worms had already charged over, and their size was also larger than the ones I had seen before. Each one was nearly 5 meters long. The one in the lead opened its massive mouth and lunged at me. I swung my iron greatsword fiercely and struck its hard head directly. With a crisp crack, my 17 points of strength were not comparable to before, so this powerful blow directly split the spearhead worm's body open. A large amount of blood splattered all over me, but I didn't have time to care. I quickly rolled and dodged the attacks of the other 2 spearhead worms. Then I immediately stood up and charged. I slashed their soft bodies with one blow. Just like that, I cut down both spearhead worms at the same time. But before I could even catch my breath, with 3 thudding sounds, 3 globs of white mucus suddenly flew from the front. Although I didn't know what it was, I still quickly retreated a few steps to dodge. Then I saw a yellow armored bug, completely covered in armor, about 3 or 4 meters in size, moving on its numerous short, thick legs, charging over like a chariot. Just seeing the creature's posture, I knew I couldn't face it head-on, so I started to retreat. I planned to go back into the esophagus to regroup, but before I could take a few steps back, the armored bug stepped on the white mucus. It was then stuck fast and couldn't move. Seeing this, my eyes lit up. I immediately seized this opportunity. I opened the deep blue storage box on my back. 10 units of stone instantly turned into blue light and rushed out. Then, with a thought, I opened the system panel and clicked to craft a stone block. A 500-pound stone block appeared, a few meters above the armored bug. It then fell rapidly and smashed heavily onto its body. The shell was directly shattered, and the parasite died instantly. Thud, thud, thud. 3 more globs of white mucus shot over. This time, as I retreated, I also located the source of the projectiles. It was a type of soft-bodied parasite hanging upside down. Because the steel-armored leviathan's stomach was so large, the ceiling was very far from me. For a moment, I really had no way to deal with those few parasites. Swish, swish, swish. A few familiar whooshing sounds echoed. I immediately reacted, constantly dodging the attacks of the razor discus worms. For those I couldn't dodge, I swung my greatsword and knocked them away. But the ever-increasing number was really starting to overwhelm me. The commotion grew larger and larger. Almost all the parasites in the stomach had noticed me. They all started to approach me, but right now, I could only do my best to fend them off. I couldn't spare the energy to retreat into the esophagus. Suddenly, I had a flash of inspiration. During a brief moment while dodging an attack, I picked up the corpse of a razor discus worm. Then, like throwing a frisbee, I threw it at the mucus parasites hanging from the ceiling. Just like that, I easily severed the body of one of them. Seeing that it was effective, I repeated the process a few times. After a while, I finally killed all the ones on the ceiling, and without the disturbance of the mucus, I finally had a moment to spare. I immediately retreated into the esophagus, but the massive swarm of parasites quickly chased after me. I immediately created several stone foundations and blocked the esophagus. I held this position like a fortress entrance. The parasites kept pouring in. I swung my sword continuously for more than 10 minutes. My arms were so tired they were numb. The corpses of various parasites piled up, but they were still constantly pouring in through the opening. I could hear all sorts of rustling and crawling sounds. I knew that just defending like this wouldn't work. My stamina simply couldn't hold out. With my brain working at full speed with 12 points of intelligence, I quickly came up with a solution. I first retreated a short distance. Then I quickly created a foundation wall to seal off the area in front of me. Then I turned around and created a passage that went straight to the top of the esophagus. I blocked all the remaining gaps with stone foundations. I left only a straight path in the middle. Then I took off all my equipment and put it in the supply crate. I reallocated the 5 free attribute points from the Forerunner title to speed. Then, with a wave of my arm, I stored all the foundations blocking the parasites into the system interface. I sent them to Liu Tsiku. The swarm of parasites surged towards me like a tidal wave. My scalp tingled for a moment. Then I sprinted to the end of the esophagus with all my might. I turned around and opened the deep blue chest. With a thought, a large amount of stone flew out. I crafted them into stone blocks in midair. They fell like a rain of stones. A series of dull thuds echoed in the esophagus. The swarm of worms was smashed into piles of mush. After a while, the entire passage was filled with stone blocks. So, with a wave of my hand, I sent them all to Luzichu again. The parasites from the stomach continued to pour into the esophagus. Then I did the same thing as before and created a rain of stone blocks. After repeating this for some time, no more parasites crawled into the passage. Only a few lucky survivors managed to reach me, but I'm no pushover. I reallocated the 5 free attribute points to strength again. With a few slashes, I killed them all. Then, with a thought, I put on my armor. I waded through the mush on the ground and walked forward. I finally returned to the steel-armored leviathan's stomach. As far as the eye could see, there were still a large number of parasites here, but they were all non-aggressive. They were just clinging to the stomach wall and sucking blood. After a whole night, I finally cleaned them all up. I only left some sun orb worms for light. At this time, I had reached the deepest part of the steel-armored leviathan's stomach. Next to the digestive pool was a small mountain of iron ore. I thought to myself, I can't leave empty-handed, so I planned to take this iron ore back with me. But suddenly, with a few rumbles, the entire iron ore mountain started to shake for no reason. Then, a giant worm, about 2 meters thick and with a metallic sheen, drilled out from inside. It thrashed its body wildly. It seemed very angry. I had a bad feeling and was about to run. But to my surprise, the next second, it rushed in front of me at an incredible speed. It opened its massive mouth and lunged to bite. I quickly retreated a few steps and narrowly dodged. I used all my strength to swing my sword down, but I only heard the sound of metal clashing, and a shower of sparks flew. My heart sank. This creature's body was covered in a layer of iron skin. It immediately twisted its body and charged at me again. I quickly created 3 stone blocks in the air and smashed them down, but its body only dipped slightly. It didn't take any damage. Then it shook its body and threw all the stone blocks off. Seeing this, my heart sank to the bottom. I felt that this parasite was simply not something I could deal with right now. And in the brief moment, I was stunned. Its saw-like mouth was upon me again. This time, I didn't manage to dodge completely. A piece of my armor was bitten off. I was terrified. A cold sweat broke out all over my body. If I had been half a beat slower, my entire arm would probably be gone by now. I knew I couldn't let this continue. So, with my brain working at full speed, I came up with a plan. The stone blocks didn't damage the giant worm, but the 500-pound weight did have some suppressive effect. So, if I have enough of them, even if I can't kill it, I can immobilize it. The prerequisite for this is to trap it in a narrow space. So I took off my armor and reallocated the 5 free attribute points to speed. The giant worm chased frantically behind me, but now my 22 points of speed surpassed it, so I led it in circles while placing stone foundations. After about 10 minutes, I successfully built a cubic space, but I had also used up most of my stamina. I quickly changed direction and ran into the gap I had intentionally left. Next, I had to perform the most dangerous step, that is, to lead the giant worm in a circle here, so that its body would coil up inside. So, at my fastest speed, I turned at the 4 corners of the cubic space. Behind me, I heard the continuous sound of the giant worm crashing into the stone walls. Finally, I ran out of the cubic space. Then I quickly turned around and sealed the gap. With a loud boom, a massive impact sounded. The entire stone wall immediately cracked. I knew this cubic space wouldn't last long, and the top was still open. As soon as the giant worm realized it could climb out from the top, so I quickly had Lu Zishu send over all the stone he had. Then I crafted them into a large number of stone blocks and dropped them from above. The giant worm thrashed wildly, trying to break free. But soon, the cubic space was filled. It was pressed down so hard it couldn't move. At this moment, I finally had a chance to breathe. I then began to think about what to do next. The mission this time is to clear out all the parasites. Otherwise, I can't leave. That means I must kill that giant worm. But my greatsword can't even break its skin. After a brief thought, I looked towards the digestive pool. If I can make the giant worm fall into it, I might be able to get rid of it. Suddenly, in the collapsed iron ore mountain, a golden light flashed. It caught my attention. I quickly walked over. Upon closer inspection, I found it was a golden supply crate. My expression changed, and I was about to open it. But then, a dark, slithery thing rushed over. I quickly dodged and got a clear look at the creature. It looked the same as the giant worm, but was only 5 or 6 centimeters thick. It must be its child. Seeing this, I had an idea. I cautiously caught this small worm. Then I opened the creature encyclopedia. I wanted to see if I could find this creature's weakness. Ironclad worm. Length, 20 meters. Weight, 230 tons. Food type, iron ore. A worm that lives in symbiosis with the steel-armored leviathan. It can produce steel by consuming iron ore. The steel on its body can be used to make equipment. After reading the description, I was overjoyed. So this ironclad worm and the steel-armored leviathan have a symbiotic relationship. It's not a blood-sucking parasite at all, which means I just need to clear out the last few sun orb worms, and the mission will be complete. There's no need to fight that adult ironclad worm to the death. So I picked up the gold-rimmed supply crate and turned to kill those few sun orb worms. But just then, an extremely angry roar came from behind me. The next second, the filled cubic space exploded. Then the giant worm charged towards me. Its speed was much faster than before. It seemed to have entered a berserk state. I immediately reacted and dodged the attack. But the crisis wasn't over. Immediately after, its tail whipped towards me at an incredible speed. My heart skipped a beat because I wasn't wearing any armor right now. If I got hit, the consequences would be unimaginable. So, with a thought, I created a 3x3 wall in front of me, but the next moment, the stone wall shattered. The giant worm's tail smashed heavily into me. I was sent flying several meters before I hit the ground. A suffocating pain spread throughout my body. I opened my mouth but couldn't make a sound for a long time. After a few seconds, I forced myself to get up. Thankfully, the moment I was hit, I had raised my constitution to 23. That's why I didn't pass out. But I immediately coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Then my head started spinning. My whole body lost its strength. I knew my internal organs were damaged, but the ironclad worm didn't give me time to recover. It was already charging at me with its bloody maw wide open. At this life or death moment, I forced myself to take out the boiling snow coral powder from my pocket and ate it in one gulp. The blood in my body immediately started to flow faster. A surge of strength instantly filled me. My body could move again. I sidestepped to dodge the attack. Then I turned and ran towards the esophagus. But I hadn't run far when I suddenly staggered. My throat tightened, and I coughed up blood again. I knew my body had reached its limit, and I also understood that when severely injured, I shouldn't use the boiling snow powder. Just then, the ironclad worm charged up behind me again. In a moment of desperation, I threw out the dream anemone worm's body fluid. It immediately had a displacement effect on it. In its vision, It saw that I had already run into the steel-armored Leviathan's esophagus, so it quickly chased after me, but it soon came to its senses. It turned its head and found that I was still in the stomach space. I immediately picked up the deep blue chest and created 310 unit-thick walls at the entrance of the esophagus. I also reinforced them with a large number of stone blocks. With a loud bang, an impact sounded. Seeing that the wall didn't move at all, I knew the ironclad worm was completely blocked. I then opened the golden supply crate that had been thrown on the ground. Ding! Obtained tooth steel longsword, scale steel chestplate, manual algae pulverizer blueprint, steel armored Leviathan's tooth X1, equipment slot X1. I was shocked. They were all good things. I planned to take out the tooth steel longsword to get a feel for it, but as soon as I held it, I lurched downwards. I almost fell over. After allocating 5 free attribute points to strength, I could barely swing it a few times. Then I took out the scale steel chestplate. This time, I didn't just almost fall. It slipped from my hand and fell to the ground because it was too heavy. It was simply not something I could wear right now. Next, in the blueprint interface, I checked the manual algae pulverizer. I still don't know what it's used for. The crafting materials are wood X30, steel ingot X-Guminen, and iron ingot Xtio. I was stunned. Although I had never obtained steel ingots before, the ironclad worm's encyclopedia mentioned that it could produce steel ingots. I then checked my character panel. The equipment slots next to it had become 2. Finally, I took out the steel-armored Leviathan's tooth. A giant, metallic fang appeared before me. Its surface was extremely smooth. I used my iron greatsword to slash at it hard a few times, but there wasn't a single scratch. Seeing this, I thought excitedly. This fang should also count as a fishbone. If I use it to make fishbone armor, won't I be invincible? Although I was seriously injured this time, with such a rich harvest, it was worth it. I knew I couldn't delay any longer. Once the effect of the boiling snow coral powder wore off, I would enter a weakened state, so I immediately went to the iron ore mountain. After digging through a pile of iron ore, I quickly found the ironclad worm's nest. Some cylindrical metal objects were scattered around. I immediately picked one up. Obtained steel ingot. I was overjoyed. Then I put them all into the deep blue chest. Just then, that small ironclad worm rushed over from somewhere again. I grabbed it and was about to toss it aside, but then I paused. If I take it back with me, can I make it continuously produce steel ingots? So I immediately had Lu Zichu send a roll of paper bandages. I tied the small worm up tightly. Then I put it in my pocket. Now, this dungeon is finally coming to an end. So I walked to the last giant sun orb worm. I planned to clean it up. After one slash, blood gushed out like a waterfall. And then, a red sphere fell out of its body. Before I had time to think about what it was, the light of the sun orb worm dimmed. Immediately after, a phantom of the steel-armored Leviathan slowly appeared. I knew. This meant my dungeon mission was complete, so I quickly picked up the red sphere and the 2 treasure chests. Then I was swallowed by the phantom. The next second, I was back in the crucian carp's stomach. Right now, I just felt that this place was very cramped, but it was also incredibly reassuring. After I came to my senses, I realized that the stomach had been shaking all along. Then I heard the crucian carp's thoughts in my mind. Its tone seemed very anxious. Where did the little person in my belly go? When did he disappear? What do I do? It kept repeating this sentence, until a short while later, it sensed my presence. Only then did it stop. After a confused, its little brain was a bit muddled, but it didn't think too much about it. Then it started moving around, looking for food. Just then, the effect of the boiling snow coral powder on me wore off, so I entered a weakened state. This made me, who was already injured and sick, even more lethargic. But I couldn't rest, because it was already morning. The feeding and supply crate swallowing phases would definitely not be peaceful, so I had to hold on until it rested. Just then, I remembered the red sphere I was still holding, so I quickly examined it carefully. Obtained steel-armored Leviathan's blood crystal, a crystal that is condensed, the essence of the steel-armored Leviathan's blood. When the Titan Giant Coon's scales reach the 7th transformation, it can make them grow bone steel scales. After reading the system prompt, I was overjoyed. This is good stuff. I didn't expect that giant sun orb worm's body to be hiding such a treasure, but since I haven't reached the 7th transformation yet, I first put the crystal and the items from the deep blue chest into the storage cabinet. Then I crafted a new small aquarium. I untied the small ironclad worm I brought back and put it inside. It has a very fierce temper and always tries to escape. Seeing this, I took out 3 iron ores from the storage cabinet and put them inside. When it saw something to eat, it immediately calmed down. After that, I made a round in the stomach space. I fed the gelatin worm seaweed. I asked Zigong Chushue for the corpse of a spearhead worm. I bled it to feed the boiling snow coral worms. The golden silk seaweed was the same as always, but the rock gold leaf tree, after a night of growth, the 3 rock fruits had grown to the size of lychees. At this growth rate, they should be ripe by tonight. After my inspection, and knowing that everything in the stomach was fine, I climbed onto the foundation and rested, feeling half dead. I couldn't help it, I was really tired. Not long after, the esophageal membrane opened. Seawater rushed in. The crucian carp started to eat, but I didn't feel nervous like before. After experiencing several major battles in the steel-armored Leviathan dungeon, I no longer take the parasites inside the crucian carp's body seriously. After the water receded, I found two white armored bugs, nearly 2 meters long. They were the same kind that I had smashed to death with stone blocks in the steel-armored Leviathan's stomach yesterday. But these two were obviously much smaller. I glanced at them. I couldn't even be bothered to move. I just created 2 stone blocks above them and let them fall quickly. But the white armored bugs didn't take much damage. Their shells weren't even smashed. They just shook their bodies and threw the stone blocks off. It wasn't because their shells were too hard. It was because the height of the crucian carp's stomach space was too low. There wasn't enough gravitational acceleration, so the impact of the falling stone blocks was much weaker. This also made me understand that inside the crucian carp's stomach, I couldn't kill parasites as easily as I did last night. I muttered helplessly, "What a pain." Then I reallocated the 5 free attribute points to strength and walked down from the foundation. The 2 white armored bugs let out a strange cry and charged towards me. I wasn't flustered at all. With a thought, the toothed steel longsword from my equipment slot appeared in my hand. I swung it down hard. With a crisp crack, the white armored bug was directly cut in half. But the momentum of the toothed steel longsword didn't stop. I couldn't stop it in time and was about to hit the stomach wall. In a panic, with a thought, I instantly stored the toothed steel longsword back into my equipment slot. My lethargic eyes were suddenly wide with shock. I thought that with the white armored bug's shell for protection, cutting it wouldn't be so easy. But I didn't expect this toothed steel longsword to be so sharp. It was like cutting through tofu. Thankfully, I have the equipment slot. Otherwise, if I hadn't stopped it in time and cut open the crucian carp's stomach, it would have been a big problem. So when the second white armored bug charged over, I swung horizontally and easily cut it in half. Immediately after, I started coughing violently, and there was blood in my phlegm. So I quickly reallocated the 5 free attribute points back to Constitution. Only then did I feel a little better. I then opened the creature encyclopedia to check. White armored bug, length 2 to 3 meters, weight 500 kilograms, food type blood, a parasite that lives inside giant creatures. It is covered in heavy armor and is indestructible. Its shell can be used to make armor. After reading it, I couldn't help but complain. This toothed steel longsword is really too sharp. The rest of the crucian carp's feeding process was peaceful. No other creatures flowed into the stomach, so I just lay there resting, half dead. After the feeding phase ended, I started moving the seaweed. After the seaweed was moved, I lay down like a dead dog, ready to rest again. I couldn't help it. I was too tired. Last night in the dungeon, I had several major battles with the parasite swarm. I haven't rested since then. Just then, Qigong Chusei and Liu Tsiku sent me a message. They said their crucian carp didn't move today. The esophageal membrane opened, but no seawater flowed into the stomach. It must be that they encountered what I told them about before, a treasure cave. So I planned to do what Liu Zichu did for me back then, and act as logistical support. After some time, they both encountered attacks from salt dung worms. I kept sending them wooden shields. Liu Zichu's crucian carp quickly noticed that he was blocked, so it let out a cry and scared away the salt dung worms. But Zigong Chusui wasn't so lucky. He had to hold out with more than 30 wooden shields before his crucian carp noticed. This made me realize that perhaps not all crucian carps are the same. Some are smart, while others are a bit slower. By the time they both returned, it was already night. I didn't hold back. I had them hand over all the blueprints they got today. Liu Zichu's silver-rimmed supply crate yielded an iron-plated great shield blueprint. Zigong Chusui got a white rhombus. Scale armor. I crafted them all in one go. The iron-plated great shield was made of wood, covered with a relatively thick layer of iron plating. Its defense was much higher than a wooden shield. Then I planned to test the defense of the white rhombus. Scale armor. I first struck the white rhombus scale armor with my iron greatsword. It only left a shallow scratch. It wasn't damaged, but it still couldn't compare to my upgraded armor. At this time, the 3 fruits on the rock gold leaf tree were ripe. I walked over and picked them all. Then I cracked one open and ate it directly. Ding. Consumed rock fruit. Strength +1. Constitution +1. Speed +1. I was instantly overjoyed. It can still continue to increase all 3 stats. Then, without hesitation, I ate the other 2. All 3 stats increased twice more. I was utterly shocked. I have used 6 rock fruits so far, and they have given me 18 attribute points. Then, I excitedly opened my character panel. I was even more surprised to see that my character evaluation had changed. The notification about being infected with parasites was gone. I couldn't help but mutter to myself. Could it be because of the increase in my constitution? My immune system directly killed the parasites inside me? After thinking about it for a while, I think that's the only explanation that makes sense. Knowing that a major worry was gone. I can't even describe how happy I am right now. I then lay down comfortably on the foundation and fell into a deep sleep. I woke up the next day still in a great mood. While waiting for the giant fish's feeding phase, I suddenly remembered the Feihong positioning card that I hadn't tried in a few days. So I immediately took it out from the storage cabinet. I said, use. I was just trying it out casually, But to my surprise, the Feihong positioning card turned into a golden light and disappeared. Ding! Feihong positioning card used successfully. The Feihong Sea has been located for the Titan Giant Kun. Based on current speed, you will enter the Feihong Sea in 3 days. While I was surprised, the giant fish's thoughts also echoed in my mind. It feels like something is calling me. I couldn't help but feel a surge of joy, because the food that can accelerate the crucian carp's growth. According to the encyclopedia, one of them, the Feihong seaweed, is in that sea region, so I have to make this trip. After all, the stronger the crucian carp is, the safer I am. Since entering the deep blue sea, the crucian carp has always been chased by various creatures, hiding here and there, and every time, I'm terrified and helpless, so I naturally won't miss an opportunity to help it grow. Not long after, the crucian carp started to eat. Seawater rushed in, but I didn't hide in the safe zone on the foundation, as usual. Instead, I just stood in the flowing seawater, because now, with my 15 points of strength, even with a full set of armor, I'm still as light as a swallow, so there's no need to hide. Suddenly, the water surface exploded. 4 spearhead worms shot out. I swung my iron greatsword a few times with ease, and dealt with them easily. After the water receded, I started moving the seaweed again. Then I remembered there was one more thing to do. 5 days ago, I had Lu Zichu and Zigong Chushu promote the small planter boxes to the guild members. In the end, we selected 80 members to specialize in growing fruit, because the fruit grown by the survivors themselves can also speed up the crucian carp's growth, but the amount needed is a full 5 tons. So I thought of having some guild members grow them together, and then collect them all at once, counting the time. The watermelon seeds I distributed before should be ripe by now. So, I sent a message to Liu Zishu and Sigong Chuxue and had them collect them all. So, they started collecting the watermelons grown by the guild. They successfully collected 70. In the beginning, I distributed 80 small planter boxes, but 6 members left the guild as soon as they got them, and among the remaining 74, another 8 couldn't resist the temptation and ate the watermelons themselves. So in the end, among the guild members, 66 submitted their watermelons. The remaining 4 were the 2 that Liu Zichu and Zigong Chuxu each planted. I think it's pretty good overall. In a situation that relies entirely on self-discipline, 66 people still completed the task. They are trustworthy and worth cultivating. Not long after, Zigong Chuxu sent me another message. He said a guild leader named Du Zitang suddenly contacted him. He wanted to buy a fishbone blade from him. I was slightly taken aback. What does this person mean? Could it be that he also found a treasure cave today? I told Zigong Chushu to trade with him. Let's see what this person is up to. But not long after Zigong Chuxu traded with Du Zitang, a message appeared on the world channel that shocked everyone. Duel voucher used successfully. The living obtains all the supplies of the dead. The life and death duel begins. I was stunned when I saw it. I immediately went to the storage cabinet. I found that my duel voucher was still there, so I couldn't help but frown and mutter, how is that possible? Where did he get a duel voucher? By checking the avatar on the red message, I saw that the initiator of the duel voucher was Du Zitang, and the person he challenged was the leader of the #1 guild, Wang Xuan. After thinking for a moment, I suddenly had a thought. It must be that someone else entered the deep blue sea today. They obtained a duel voucher and sold it to Du Zitang at a high price. A dozen minutes later, the duel ended. Du Zitang won. He obtained all of Wang Xuan's supplies. The survivors in the communication channel were all in a panic. The sudden turn of events threw the survivors into an uproar. The various parasites they encountered in the fish's belly every day were already tiring enough. Now there's a life and death duel. But I just smiled. When I first got the duel voucher, I had already predicted this kind of situation would happen. The victorious Du Zitang was extremely arrogant. He directly shouted on the world channel, as you can all see, I now have the power to decide your life and death. From today onwards, if you're afraid of dying, come join my soaring guild. I promise not to kill my comrades at will. After saying this, Du Zitang turned his attention to me. Oh, and you, some so-called big shot. The algae oxygenators you sell every day. Either double the price like me, or don't sell them at all. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Hearing what Du Zitang said, I immediately crafted 20 algae oxygenators with disdain. I listed them on the World Trading Channel at the same price. Doing this was, of course, to not appear too weak. Otherwise, Du Zitang would definitely push his luck. And the reason he didn't challenge me to a duel, but chose someone else, shows that he is wary of me. After all, I'm currently leading everyone. There are too many unknowns about me. As for my response, Du Zitang pretended not to see it. And just like that, there was no more movement. Many people on the World Channel spoke up, saying they wanted me to uphold justice. I completely ignored them. I continued to wait for the crucian carp to swallow supply crates. Suddenly, its thoughts echoed in my mind. Damn it, get out of the way. The next second, the entire stomach space shook violently. The crucian carp was accelerating at full speed. Then it suddenly stopped. With a boom, a sound of seawater exploding echoed. I was hit by the shockwave. but with my current constitution, I only felt slightly dizzy for a moment and then immediately recovered. Judging from the sound, the force the giant fish used this time was much greater than when it slapped the white-scaled fish. It seems to have encountered a larger creature. Immediately after, the stomach space suddenly sank. The crucian carp's body was attacked. It then let out a painful cry. The entire stomach space was like a washing machine, spinning rapidly. I held on tightly to the wooden foundation's post to barely avoid being thrown off. Boom! Another loud noise. The giant fish crashed into a huge rock. The stomach space shook violently, but it wasn't over. The crucian carp started to accelerate upwards with all its might. The entire stomach space became vertical. Not long after, with a bang, it leaped out of the water. Then it began to fall rapidly. This put me in a state of weightlessness. Another loud noise. The giant fish crashed down heavily. Then, it finally became calm. The battle seemed to be over, but I don't know what the situation is outside. Did the giant fish win? My heart was in my throat. Then the crucian carp's thoughts echoed. Good thing you ran fast. Otherwise, I would have rammed you to death. Although the crucian carp's tone was weak, it was very defiant. It clearly wasn't an easy victory. The heart that had been in my throat finally settled down. I couldn't help but mutter. The creature this time must have been quite large. After all, it could still escape under the crucian carp's full-force attack. After the great battle, I started to check all the items. The ones on the foundation were mostly fine. The water in the algae oxygenator had spilled. The gelatin worms were scattered everywhere. I gathered them back one by one. And then there's the small ironclad worm. When the stomach space was flipping up and down, it was tossed around quite a bit. Now it doesn't even have the energy to bite me. But looking at its condition, it seems it was just spun dizzy. There are no major problems. Not long after, just as I finished organizing all the items, the giant fish's aggrieved thoughts echoed in my mind. Ouch, it hurts. I immediately took it seriously. Is it injured? The giant fish can't have any problems, but I had no way to communicate with it. I couldn't know how serious its injuries were, so I went to the esophageal membrane and patted it hard. This indeed caught the giant fish's attention. It first muttered in confusion, "Does the little person want to come out?" Then it surfaced and opened its esophageal membrane. My expression changed. I quickly used the stone mortar and pestle to grind 30 gelatin worms. I made more than half a wooden bucket of hemostatic gel. Then I carried it into the esophagus. The esophagus wasn't pitch black because there was a light shining in from the end. It was warm and bright. I walked towards it and into the crucian carp's mouth. The moment I stepped into the white light, I felt it was a bit dazzling. I squinted to adjust. I slowly opened my eyes. I felt everything become clear. This is the first time since I came to this world that I've seen the warm sunlight, this magnificent scenery. I couldn't help but exclaim, "What a beautiful blue sea and sky." I then spread my arms, feeling the long-lost sunlight and sea breeze. The giant fish noticed my strange behavior and sent out a confused thought. What is the little person doing? Hearing this, I was stunned. Right, treating the crucian carp's injuries is more important. I then leaped forward and jumped into the sea. I started treading water to stay afloat. Seeing me come out, the crucian carp closed its mouth. Then it slowly lowered its huge body. It stared at me with its big, round, innocent eyes. I didn't say anything. I just took my dagger and made a light cut on my arm. Blood seeped from the wound. Seeing this, the crucian carp's eyes widened in shock. I then scooped some hemostatic gel from the wooden bucket and applied it to the wound. The bleeding stopped immediately. The fish blinked. It quickly understood that I was just trying to treat it. It then submerged its entire huge body underwater. It swam beneath me and slowly rose, letting me stand on its body. And as it rose higher and higher, more and more of its body was exposed to the air. And with it, a series of... It swam beneath me and slowly rose, letting me stand on its body. And as it rose higher and higher, more and more of it emerged from the water. Along with it, one hideous wound after another appeared in my line of sight. I immediately frowned. These injuries were much worse than I had expected, and the wounds were all long and narrow, as if they had been slashed by a knife. I'm afraid the half bucket of hemostatic gel in my hand won't be enough. After pondering for a moment, I decided to stop the bleeding on the larger wounds first. After all, I only had 40 gel planarians in total, and this half bucket had already used up 30 of them. I had to save the remaining 10 for breeding. Otherwise, if the carp suffers severe injuries in the future, I wouldn't have enough to make hemostatic gel for it. Afterward, I started applying the gel to the larger wounds. The effect of the hemostatic gel was as remarkable as ever. It worked instantly. After a while, all the wounds over a meter long had been coated. As for the remaining smaller wounds, I noticed that, thanks to the crucian carp's massive size and recovery speed, they had already stopped bleeding. It seemed to feel that its wounds weren't hurting as much anymore, so it let out a cheerful cry, and its inner voice echoed in my mind. Wow, the little human is so amazing. But I didn't expect that in the next second, it would suddenly roll its body in joy. I was directly flipped right into the sea. Caught off guard, I even choked on a few mouthfuls of seawater. The fish quickly realized what happened, so it hurriedly dove underwater and used its body to lift me back up. I coughed up some seawater and thought to myself, is my crucian carp a little goofball? After that, the carp didn't dare to move recklessly anymore. Its massive body floated steadily on the surface of the sea, just like a small island. I didn't immediately return to the stomach wall space. Instead, I just lay down on its back, enjoying the sea breeze and basking in the sunlight. Since I came out, I naturally wanted to stay outside a bit longer. Plus, the carp was injured. Even though the bleeding stopped, it still needed to rest. So I figured I'll just skip the last 2 supply boxes for today. A moment later, I suddenly remembered something. Earlier in the stomach, due to the lack of oxygen, I couldn't light the furnace. But now that I'm outside, isn't that problem solved? So I immediately sat up, ready to give it a try. At this point, I couldn't be bothered to go back to the stomach wall space to get basic materials. I just asked Niu Zichu for some directly. Then I used 50 pieces of stone to craft a furnace. I added iron ore into the furnace. Next, I took out a piece of wood, whittled it into a round stick, and used the wood shavings as tinder. Then, I started drilling the wood to make a fire. After trying over a dozen times, I finally succeeded in starting a fire. The furnace was lit. Next was just waiting patiently. So, I went back to lying on the fish's back, soaking up the sun. At this moment, I felt nothing but leisure and comfort. During this time, I would occasionally add wood to the furnace as fuel, but after about 2 hours had passed, the iron ore inside the furnace was only glowing red hot. There was no sign of it melting. Seeing this, I scratched my head. This situation was actually expected. After all, smelting iron requires coal as fuel. It has high combustion efficiency and generates high temperatures, allowing the furnace to reach the melting point of iron ore. However, even though I didn't have coal, I could make charcoal to give it a try, because I happen to have the blueprint for a small charcoal kiln. The crafting materials were also dirt and dry grass that I had obtained before, but seeing that it was already evening, I decided to make it tomorrow, because the time it takes for the kiln to burn charcoal would be very long, and it was almost night. The carp needed to find a relatively safe place to sleep. Floating on the sea all the time was too dangerous, so doing it today was definitely out of the question. However, I didn't plan on letting the fire I had worked so hard to start go to waste. So, I directly returned to the stomach wall space. Not long after the water boiled, I put in 2 packs of instant noodle seasoning. I also poured in the canned beef. The aroma instantly spread around. At this moment, I felt very satisfied. When the beef was almost cooked, I added the thickly sliced spiked shrimp meat, then the thinly sliced white jade scallop meat. Basically, any ingredients I had. I threw them all into the pot. After it was cooked, I even served some, and sent a bowl each to Liu Tsichu and Sigong Chuksue. After eating it, they both praised it endlessly. After all, just surviving in the stomach is already very difficult. They usually can't eat any salty food, and although I got 2 fewer supply crates today, I was still very happy, sunbathing and enjoying the sea breeze, and having a decent meal. It can be said that this is the most pleasant day I've had since I came to this world. After eating, both of them asked me in confusion how I made a fire. I told them the method of getting outside without hesitation, because I thought making charcoal by myself is too troublesome. I might as well let the 2 of them do it, then I can just use the finished product. But after trying my method of padding the esophageal membrane, their crucian carps didn't react at all, so I guessed that maybe their strength wasn't enough to attract the crucian carp's attention. Then Liu Zichu asked carelessly, "Then, Brother Bai, should I stab the esophageal membrane to force it open?" I was startled. I quickly warned him not to harm his own giant fish. At the same time, I noticed that other people in this world don't seem to care much about their crucian carps. In their eyes, the crucian carp is just a tool or a boat, but only I can hear the crucian carp's thoughts. So I see it as a good partner. I care about its condition. After eating and drinking my fill, I quickly returned to the crucian carp's stomach to sleep and rest. And after today, there are only 2 days left before entering the Feihong Sea. Today is my 19th day in this world. I first inspected the situation in the stomach after getting up. I found that the small ironclad worm had already produced a small steel ingot. I was immediately pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect it to have only been in the stomach space for 1 day, and it has already started producing. Although the size is small, I'm already very satisfied. Then I started waiting for the crucian carp to eat, but not long after, it was targeted by a giant creature. Then it started to flee. In the end, it swam until it almost had no stamina left. Only then did it successfully escape, but by then, its feeding phase had already passed. After a heavy sigh of relief, I had Zigong Chusho and Liu Tsichu collect a large amount of seaweed from their respective guilds. They sent it to me. Then I fed it to the crucian carp. And today, I don't plan to go outside to light the furnace, because from the giant fish's current thoughts, I know that it is still in a tense state. This means that within its biological radar range, it is detected that there are still giant creatures roaming nearby. Just then, Liu Tsichu sent a message. He said he encountered razor discus worms today. I had told him about the razor discus worm's weakness in advance, so he easily passed this crisis. Then I had him spread the information about the razor discus worm on the world channel. I also sold the method to kill the razor discus worm to the leaders of various guilds at a high price. Not long after, Liu Zichu traded for many blueprints. He sent them to me. I took a quick look. The one that caught my attention the most was a blueprint called Stone Floor. After crafting it, I found it was 1 square meter in size. It was 2 centimeters thick, just like a floor tile. It can fit perfectly on the foundation. Not long after, the giant fish swallowed today's first supply crate. Ding. Obtained Stimulant Capsule X1. After taking it, gained Strength plus 5. Duration, 5 minutes. Can only be used once a day. I held it in my hand and looked at it. I found it was just a very small red capsule. I thought to myself, isn't this just a weakened version of the boiling snow coral powder? I feel like it's not very useful to me now. So I walked towards the storage cabinet. I planned to put it away for now. But suddenly, I felt like I stepped on something. I looked carefully into the water. I found it was a long, black creature. I was stunned. Is this a sea cucumber? I then opened the creature encyclopedia to check. Leech worm. Length, 20 centimeters. Weight, 1 kilogram. Food type, blood. A parasite that lives inside giant creatures. It has a strong suction force and is difficult to remove. It will continuously suck the host's blood until it dies.